When this schoolboy walks into the classroom, the bully is already waiting for him, and the first thing he does is greet Mu with a punch straight to the face. Blood hits the floor, but something is seriously wrong with Mu today. Instead of backing down, he slowly starts laughing like a complete maniac, and then charges straight at the bully. One punch, one brutal headbutt. That's all it takes to force the bully onto his knees right in front of the entire class. Everyone is stunned. They can't believe what they're seeing. Even the teacher has no idea what's going on. The hopeless loser everyone used to mock is now standing over his defeated bully, laughing like a madman, as if he can't even feel pain anymore. So what happened to him? Well, the strongest being on Earth just ended up inside his body. And his story began a very long time ago. It all started 3 million years ago, when humans were nothing more than stinky apes dominating the wildlife. Among those apes was the protagonist of our story, who was just an ordinary Australopithecus with an unusually strong love for hunting. But the defining trait that set him apart among all the specimens around was the fact that he never died. While his fellows turned to dust with the passing millennia, he remained alive to witness it all. Countless eons swept past him, but time had literally no effect on him. In the eternity of life he spent his time hunting, battling, and fighting. At some point, it became more than just a way of life. It became his obsession and sole purpose. In simpler terms, shredding his prey became his ultimate thrill. After spending 3 million years living this peak life, the guy got absolutely jacked. With nothing but raw physical strength gained from years of combat, he became so powerful that he literally ascended to the ranks of the gods. It didn't take him long to become the #1 ranked god in the divine realm. Now Mu, the once ordinary ape, is in charge of planet Earth. But becoming a god or some divine being had never been this guy's goal. And right now, boredom is tweaking the hell out of him. Out of sheer boredom, he lightly presses the ground beneath him with just his toe, and that one tap is enough to shake the entire planet. The planet he's sitting on happens to be the god's sanctuary, known as the divine realm. Every other god in the sanctuary feels the massive earthquake caused by Mu's casual tap. The second-ranked god, Lucifer, the god of Elmure, is especially annoyed by the tremor because he has no doubt who's responsible for it. Meanwhile, Mu slumps on his throne, his mood visibly sour. Apparently, he's already fought everyone who might have posed any sort of real challenge, and now there's no one left who can stand against him. It's been so long since his last fight that he can't even remember when it was. Perhaps it was 1,000 years ago he fought for the last time. Seems like my guy is quite literally suffering from success. He's so powerful that there's no one left to challenge him. But now that he thinks about it, if there's no one strong enough to fight him, maybe all he has to do is weaken himself to make it interesting again. With this genius idea in mind, Mu decides to possess the body of a weak human from Earth, where he'll seek opportunities to fight. Without wasting time, he calls out to his familiar, Yang Yang. The massive reptilian creature quickly appears, ready to respond to his master's summons. Yang Yang isn't just any ordinary companion. He's the Supreme God's secretary, and his name literally translates to dragon in English. When Yang Yang asks the reason behind this sudden call, Mu casually shares his plan to visit Earth. Hearing this, Yang Yang panics and immediately casts an absolute binding spell, chaining his master down. He demands a plausible explanation for this abrupt and reckless decision. With the gods meeting on the horizon, Mu is supposed to stay put and fulfill his responsibilities. But Mu couldn't care less about any of that. Without even acknowledging the spell, he begins walking, dragging his massive reptilian secretary along like it's nothing. Yang Yang desperately tries to hold him back, but it's a futile effort. The real reason Yang Yang doesn't want Mu to leave isn't just duty, it's his own fear. This reptilian guy knows that once his master is gone, the other gods will turn their frustration and grudges on him. He's certain they'll use him as their personal punching bag to vent all the pent-up anger they've harbored toward Mu. But now that Mu has finally made up his mind, there's no power in the world that can stop him from fulfilling his desire to fight. Effortlessly, he breaks through the chains binding him and turns to his secretary. He openly declares that he'd consider staying, if only Yang Yang is willing to fight him in return. Of course, getting absolutely shredded by his own master is the last thing this poor reptile wants. So, nervously, he simply wishes his master a safe trip instead. With all obstacles out of his way, Mu shifts his focus to finding a candidate to possess. Tuning into the thoughts of the humans on Earth, he scans the sea of minds, listening to their wishes and desires. Amidst the noise, one thought stands out the most to him, which is a wish from a particular guy who wants to be sent to another world. Mu grins ear to ear at this discovery. Not only has he found the perfect candidate to possess, but he can also grant this guy's wish as a bonus. It's a win-win for both of them. He then turns to his familiar and announces that he's leaving his body behind and hands over the responsibility of taking care of whoever ends up in his place. This throws Yang Yang into an absolute frenzy. Desperately, he tries to reason with his master, explaining that if the soul leaves the body and the body dies, the soul will perish as well. But Mu, being the stubborn force of nature he is, has already made up his mind. He brushes off Yang Yang's concerns and promises that he'll return as soon as possible. Now let's switch to this 17-year-old earthling, Li Ho. who up until now is just a runt, living his life by inserting himself as the main character in games where he can feel on top of the world. But this game is the last one he's playing because he's tired of his pathetic existence and is about to end his life, hoping to get isekai'd and live the life he truly desires. With no hesitation in his mind, he jumps off. As he falls, Lee Ho curses his god, trying to provoke him into sending him to another world. Eventually, he hits the ground with a nasty splattering sound, and after dying, the next thing he sees is a massive beast standing in front of him, leaving him sweating his balls. Both Lee Ho and Yongyang echo the same question. Who the fuck are you? Now let's switch to Mu, who possesses Lee Ho's body a second before it hits the ground. And as soon as the body is rendered a bloody mess upon impact, he can barely move his limbs. Before proceeding further, here's a little lecture about involuntary muscles. Muscles that move without conscious control are called involuntary muscles. The heart and the muscles of internal organs are examples of involuntary muscles. Mu, who has spent 3 million years training only the physical body, has reached the pinnacle of understanding the human form. He can consciously control every part of the body, such as blood vessels, and yes, even involuntary muscles are no exception. He repairs the heart of this dying body by manipulating the blood vessels, and even manages to stop the bleeding. Honestly, it's been a while since he's bled this much, so the feeling of losing blood is just turning him on to no end. He's now feeling very proud of the decision he made to come here. First, he decides to head to the base, which of course is supposed to be the house of Earthling Lee Ho. After getting back into his dorm room, Mu spends hours digging through memories and figures out most of the things he should know. Apparently, Lee Ho has only one family member, and they're male, but he lives far away, so Lee Ho lives here alone. In simple terms, Lee Ho definitely fits the bill for being poor and miserable, and his current occupation is attending a place called school. Furthermore, there's one particular guy who's always finding excuses to beat the living daylights out of Lee Ho. This only makes Mu happier, as the sole purpose of his visit to this planet is to fight. He's ready to jump straight into a fight and start beating the hell out of anyone who crosses him. While he's getting all hyped up, he suddenly feels a tickling pain in his muscles. He quickly realizes that this muscle soreness must be from the handstand he did earlier. Although it's aching like hell, and you'd think that would be a huge turnoff, my guy is absolutely exhilarated to feel this familiar pain of muscle soreness, something he hasn't felt in 1,000 years. The next day, the spot where Lee Ho had fallen catches the attention of the authorities and is quickly turned into a restricted crime zone. With so much blood on the ground, they're trying to figure out who it might belong to. Mu also notices the officers gathered there, but he doesn't walk that path and simply takes a turn toward his class. After arriving at school, Mu opens the classroom door with the force of an animal, causing it to bounce back and smack him in the face. There's also this guy we have seen in Lee Ho's memories. He takes note of Mu's presence and questions him about his foolishness. Seeing this familiar face, Mu quickly recalls that this is the same bastard who often bullied Lee Ho. The sight of his prey being served to him on a golden plate like this makes him feel absolutely euphoric. Even the bully gets a little sassy, seeing how this loser is grinning maniacally. So he puts his phone down, gets ready, and throws a punch without any warning. The punch causes Mu's face to bleed, but he doesn't react at all to his enemy's preemptive attack. You see, Mu has his own rules when it comes to fighting. A fight only begins when all parties involved have this implicit understanding, or you can call it a will to fight. Therefore, the key lies in the opponent's intent. The way to confirm that intent is by waiting for the opponent's preemptive attack. Although this code of conduct causes Mu to take a lot of damage to his face, he's glad that he now finally has the green light to proceed with the fight. So, without a second thought, he delivers a devastating blow right to this bastard's face. Bro puts so much force into his punch that all the muscles in his arm electrify with pain from the muscle soreness. The pain is so unbearable that he literally makes a face like he just ate something nasty. Let's not forget the fact that they're in a classroom, and the teacher immediately starts shouting his ass off, furious to see these two idiots fighting each other. The bully, on the other hand, feels his pride crumbling after getting rocked by such a hard punch. To save his face, he launches himself at our boy. Mu quickly gets into high alert, but he is not sure if he can save himself. If his body were in good shape, he'd easily avoid this much. But since he currently lacks the necessary strength, he decides to use a different trick he has up his sleeve. Even so, he still ends up taking a hard blow from the bully and learns the hard way that there's no mana on Earth. The bully prepares himself to throw another punch, while Mu dreads the fact that he's running out of options to defend himself. But still, he steels himself to face this bastard head-on. Even if he can't use his arms, legs, or magic, my guy just uses his hard head, literally, and takes the punch directly to his skull. His skull is so solid that the bully actually hears his own bones cracking, leaving him in agonizing pain he never thought he'd experience. While the opponent is dazed and distracted by the pain, Mu takes this opportunity and slams his head right into the bastard's belly, right where the human's weakest point lies, the solar plexus. Afterward, he follows up with an uppercut using his head, smashing the bastard under his chin. With that final blow, the bully's knees lose all remaining strength, and all the Gen Alpha kids in the room immediately grab their phones to record the guy in his misery. Everyone's faces glisten with sweat as they watch Lee Ho effortlessly win. Just yesterday, they'd seen him get beaten up, but this insane comeback is absolutely unbelievable. As for our boy, he's completely lost in his own thoughts. He vividly recalls how, when a fight ends and the excitement settles, there's a unique feeling you can only experience then. The dull, regular pain pulsing in the areas where you were hit and the sticky, bitter taste of blood seeping into your mouth. Well, this is exactly the feeling he's been longing for, and right now, he's absolutely turned on by this overwhelming sensation. My guy crouches down and makes sure to express his gratitude to the bully. But his way of expressing his gratitude is something rather unusual, something even I didn't see coming. He literally opens his mouth, bites off the bully's ear, and spits it onto the ground in the most barbaric way possible. This sight deepens everyone's anxiety even further. To think this dude actually ripped off someone's ear so casually? Well, this is just Moo's way of leaving his mark on those who give him a fun fight. It's his twisted version of expressing gratitude while marking them as a toy that could bring him joy. From now on, they'd be called Moo's Play. Only strong opponents could give him a fun fight, so naturally, Moo's Play became a symbol of strength in his eyes. But on Earth, this is not how things work, so it's no surprise that the custom he's been following is earning hate. Even students from other classes are talking about Moo. Sure, one student beating another isn't anything new, but someone getting neutered like this is something that's a first for the school. Through the windows, all of the students watch the bully getting loaded into the ambulance. Moo is glad that this place even offers house call treatments. As the ambulance van speeds off, he bids a final goodbye to the bully in good spirits. While our boy has earned the thrill of the fight he was craving, it's now finally time to face the consequences. His annoyed teacher is standing right behind him. Once they get into the office, the teacher begins berating Moo. The teacher is so pissed that he instinctively raises his hand to hit Moo. Moo, on the other hand, just gets thrilled at the thought of the oncoming blow and actually wants the bastard to hit him. But seeing how worked up Moo looks, the teacher begins to flinch and stops dead in his tracks. The teacher simply twirls away, believing that arguing with this nutjob is pointless. So he tells Moo to bring his parents and, with that, dismisses him with permission to leave the school early. A while later, Moo can be seen walking down the streets with his mood visibly down since he wasn't able to fight more. Though it's good that he got freed early, as he needed time to recover from the damage. There's a lot to do if he wants to keep fighting with this weak body. If only he could use mana, it would be a game changer for him. About mana. It's the power beyond humans, called by various names like Kai or Chakra in some places, but in most cases, it's just called mana. Basically, mana is the life force present everywhere in nature. In some worlds, humans become hunters using it. In others, they become wizards. But on Earth, there's no mana, so no magic or skills that require mana can be used. He even tries to wield magic, but his attempt goes fruitless. Seems like Moo has no choice but to solely rely on his physical strength. Regardless, he decides to head back to God's sanctuary and return tomorrow once the body is fully healed. When he gets back, he notices Lee Ho choking the life out of poor Yong Yong. A few minutes later, Lee Ho directly addresses Moo, expressing his desire to take this dragon along with him to another world. After all, if he has this dragon in tow, he'll be overpowered from the very beginning. But Moo doesn't pay much attention to this human's words. He simply conjures up a giant hand that grabs Lee Ho and begins walking away without properly clarifying his intentions. Though he does briefly mention that he's definitely going to send Lee Ho to another world. A while later, we reach Lucifer's domain, the second-ranked god. Moo barges into the castle without asking for permission or anything. Lucifer, meanwhile, already knows what's going on and why Moo is here, so he flatly refuses him without even hearing him out. But Moo insists and makes it clear that he's already decided to send this prick to another world, so he humbly requests Lucifer to open the gate. Lucifer, of course, hates Moo's guts and how he's trying to boss him around. Besides, he has no reason to comply with Moo's commands. Well, my guy quickly reminds Lucifer about the significant gap between their strengths, which should be more than enough reason for him to comply. But if Lucifer still has any problem following what he's being told, then he can try hitting Moo, and they'll settle it. Of course, Lucifer knows exactly where this is going, so all he can do is fume in anger. Eventually, he relents and proceeds to open the gate. But Moo quickly stops him, deciding to handle things on his own. Lucifer reminds him that interfering in another god's domain is against the god's unwritten rules. He warns that if a god interferes with a fellow god's domain, then a defensive barrier will activate. Moo, being Moo, breaks the barrier with his bare hands despite the clear warning, leaving Lucifer absolutely speechless. After breaking that barrier, Moo then releases his grip on the boy and instructs him to hop through the portal, assuring him he'll be in another world. But Lee Ho isn't so sure if he wants to head into some unknown place without the dragon he requested. Well, Mu blatantly declines, stating that Yongyang belongs to him, and simply wishes Li Ho the best of luck in finding a dragon of his own. With that, he flicks Li Ho with his giant hand toward the portal, sending him to the new world. Once the mission has been accomplished, my guy decides to take his leave. Lucifer, on the other hand, is left standing there, his hands trembling with rage. You see, Lucifer originally came from his own domain, the planet Illumre. He was the first demon king, standing at the pinnacle of all living beings. With all the power he had under his belt, he became too arrogant to the point that he challenged the existence known as God. And surprisingly, he successfully killed the god he had challenged, taking their place. Basically, he rises to the top by defeating other gods. At that time, Lucifer was the god of gods, their absolute ruler, invincible and supreme, legendary and unparalleled, catastrophic and mythological, infinite and transcendent. In short, he was an utterly undefeatable force to reckon with. Well, that was only until Mu appeared. So in the present, it's not surprising that Lucifer absolutely hates the brute known as Mu. Outside, while Mu hops onto Yongyang to depart, we see one big ominous eye keeping a close watch over our hero. Let's take another look at Lucifer, who is as red as a tomato with all the anger bubbling inside him. Now let's switch back to that bully, whose face creepily resembles an angry Lucifer's. He's absolutely annoyed after getting his ass handed to him by a so-called pathetic loser. Though he's not about to let Li Ho off the hook so easily, especially after getting humiliated like that, it's just against his pride. To take revenge, he decides to call in his ace up his sleeve, Cheol Hyung. Enter Kang Cheol. He's a jacked dude and the 11th National Sports Festival Youth Division boxing middleweight champion. As he pours sweat in the gym, a ringing phone in the locker room suddenly catches his attention. It turns out the phone isn't his, it's his friend Guok Cheol's phone. Guok has 2 years of boxing experience under his belt, along with 14 sparring sessions. Guok picks up his cracked phone and answers the call. And of course, the caller is none other than that shithead bully. By the way, I still don't know the bully's name, so let's give him a well-deserved nickname, Chickpuss. Chickpuss offers Guok a new phone to replace his broken one, but in exchange, there's something he wants in return. Well, you know how it goes. Guok is more than willing to help Chickpuss with whatever it is. The next scene transitions into the classroom. Chickpuss enters, his nose and ears still covered in bandages, with his hand also wrapped up. After that humiliating loss in front of everyone, he can barely walk into the classroom with his head held high. As expected, he becomes the center of attention, and the students immediately start clamoring about how he ended up like this after always picking on people. They find it hilarious how the once tough guy is now nothing more than a defeated mess. The students who used to be scared of him now think it's ridiculous that they were ever intimidated by this hobo. Eventually, all these insults get under Chickpuss's skin. Slamming his bag down in sheer frustration, he glares at everyone. He confronts the students who are intentionally whispering just loud enough for him to hear. He challenges all of them openly and dares them to face him head-on if they're so eager to pick a fight. While most of the students recoil in fear, one particular student, the class president, stands up from her seat. Without hesitation, she tells him to shut the fuck up and sit down. Or, if he doesn't like it, he can leave the class. Chickpuss can't stand the fact that he used to be the hotshot in this room, but now everyone treats him like a complete loser. In a fit of rage, he grabs a chair and yells out a challenge to the entire class, daring anyone to come at him if they're so eager. It's then that a jacked-up guy steps into the classroom. Once he's inside, he questions the loudmouth about why he's standing. Chickpuss doesn't take long to get over his seat. While Chickpuss cowers on his seat, the class president gives a quick nod to the teacher, silently assuring that everything is fine. The teacher, however, has other plans. He asks the class president to meet him after school. Apparently, the guy who caused a scene yesterday, Li Ho, hasn't been answering his phone. The teacher wants the class president to check on him. To sweeten the deal, he promises her a glowing recommendation letter for her senior year. With that, the teacher conveniently dumps his responsibility onto the poor girl and heads out. Later, the class president arrives at the hostel building. She knocks on the door for what feels like ages, but there's no response. Since no one is answering her calls either, she decides to take matters into her own hands and enters the room. The moment she steps inside, two things immediately grab her attention. First, there are cockroaches crawling around everywhere. Second, and far more concerning, the man she's looking for is sprawled out on the floor, his eyes rolled back in his head. Her heart races and panic sets in. For a moment, she genuinely believes she's staring at a corpse. Later, we see that Li Ho's body has been escorted to the hospital. Right at that moment, Mu returns into the body. After finding himself in a completely different place than where he last left the body, Mu is naturally curious about his surroundings. As he tries to sit up, he notices he's connected to a drip. Since he does not understand the concept of injections or IVs, he feels dubious about the strange sensation of fluid entering his veins. He focuses on it and soon realizes the fluid contains nutrients, which are being absorbed rapidly, helping to speed up his recovery. It's not exactly magic, but whatever this thing is, it's undeniably effective. The thought that even Earth has something as useful as this brings a smile to his face. However, his subtle snickering catches the class president's attention, and it only creeps her out. She then explains that the homeroom teacher instructed her to find him. Now that her mission is successful, she plans to head back. Meanwhile, Mu has a lot of questions he wants answered. So, he quickly requests her to wait for a moment so he can ask her a few things. She acknowledges his call and stops upon his insistence, giving him a short period of her time before she proceeds to head to the tuition. Well, it looks like Mu has some questions that could help him learn about this world. The most important thing this fight-obsessed brute wants to know is if there's any place where he can train his body. The girl is completely expressionless, unsure how to respond since his question came totally out of the blue and was completely unexpected. But after a moment of thought, she decides to guide him. Since Mu's broke as hell, he ends up in a public park instead of a jam-packed gym. After doing some pull-ups, Mu feels pretty good. Even though he's just in an ordinary park with basic training equipment, he finds it all incredibly professional compared to what he had back 4,000 years ago. Back in the day, the only exercise he did was stone rolling, cliff climbing, and digging holes. It was all simple primitive training methods. But looking at this modern equipment, he's forced to admit that Earthlings are tougher than he originally thought. Suddenly, a pebble strikes him out of nowhere. It turns out Chickpuss has shown up, and he's brought along Guac, the friend he hired if my memory serves right. Chickpuss is drenched in sweat, his face contorted like he's dealing with some serious constipation. He's been searching the whole neighborhood for Mu, and of all places, this is where he finally finds him. Meanwhile, Mu picks up the pebble from the ground, trying to figure out who had the nerve to tag him with that thing. Chickpuss, in a not-so-bright move, admits it was him. He immediately follows up with a threat, bragging that Mu's days are numbered because this cousin of his took out all the third years single-handedly. But before Chickpuss can finish running his mouth, Mu lands a punch so devastating that it sends him straight to the ground. You see, to Mu, that pebble counted as a preemptive attack, which was more than enough justification to start the fight. The scene transitions to the gods' sanctuary, where all the gods are gathered around a grand round table for a regular meeting. But instead of Mu, Yongyang has taken the seat to represent his master. With a written speech in hand, Yongyang begins the meeting, prepared to act as a messenger on behalf of his god. Things take a sharp turn when the absolutely livid Lucifer interrupts, demanding to know what in the actual fuck Yongyang is doing there. The poor dragon nearly jumps out of his scales in shock. In a panic, he scrambles to reassure Lucifer that he's only there to deliver a message and will leave right after. After this frantic explanation, Yongyang gathers himself and proceeds to deliver the message. The message is simple, perhaps too simple. It states that Mu is looking forward to fighting someone stronger than himself and asks to be notified immediately if such a person shows up. And with that, the message concludes. Unsurprisingly, Lucifer is beyond annoyed by this nonsense. He slams the table so hard in frustration that a crack forms along its surface. Still fuming, he vents his frustration aloud. These meetings are already a colossal waste of his time, and now Mu can't even be bothered to show up in person. Lucifer turns to the other gods, questioning if they're really okay with this kind of insincere behavior from Mu. A heavy silence falls over everyone, making it painfully clear that, no, they're not okay with it. But at the same time, there's nothing they can do about it, at least not right now. That's when a blue-haired god, the third-ranked deity and divine archer Soso, speaks up. She reminds everyone that these meetings are meant to ensure world stability. When an abnormality arises that even the heart god can't handle, everyone is supposed to step in and deal with it. However, she finds it disappointing, if not outright disrespectful, that Mu didn't even bother showing up. Lucifer, already a ticking bomb, erupts again. He roars that the real issue is how maintaining the world seems like nothing more than a game to Mu. He warns that the entire system could collapse with the reckless way Mu keeps acting on his whims. To make matters worse, Mu's so-called solutions always end up making things worse. His anger peaks as he recalls the disaster from 1,000 years ago involving planet Cyclops. Just thinking about it sends his rage into overdrive. The god of Cyclops quickly nods along, visibly uncomfortable as he recalls that catastrophe from 1,000 years ago. By the way, he's the 8th-ranked god. Here's a little context about what happened back then on planet Cyclops. Apparently, a void creature, Shoggoth, attacked the planet, while Mu, the maniac, obliterated the monster with his brute strength. His recklessness caused colossal damage to the planet itself. Lucifer firmly believes that if the gods had worked together, they could have minimized the destruction. Instead, Mu botched the whole thing, allowing the creature to devour part of the planet before taking it down. Lucifer is done tolerating this. He declares that he can no longer watch that lunatic destroy everything in his path. Without hesitation, he goes so far as to claim that Mu isn't even fit to hold the title of a god. Hearing this, Yongyang panics. The poor reptile can only watch as the god's resentment toward Mu becomes glaringly obvious. With nothing else in his power, all he can do is desperately beg for his master to return and fix things. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Chickpuss is sprawled on the ground after that punch. He's furious, seething at the thought that this idiot didn't even hesitate before decking him, even though his esteemed cousin, the boxer, is standing right there. Guac finally speaks up. He can tell this kid not only has guts, but also knows how to throw a punch or two. Curiously, he asks Mu if he plays any sports. Of course, this brute has no concept of something as structured as sports, and simply states that all he does is fight. Guac nearly chokes on his own breath hearing this clown of a response, but whatever the case, his curiosity is piqued. He's ready to test Mu's mettle and throw a punch or two at him. He takes the liberty to strike first, and launches a brutal punch. The result is just as you would expect. Blood sprays from Mu's nose, and he's sent sprawling backward. This outcome doesn't make Guac happy in the slightest. He's utterly bewildered, realizing that Mu had deliberately watched his punch all the way through and didn't even try to dodge it. Let me remind you, Mu the maniac doesn't dodge preemptive strikes. Now that the stage is set, our guy is ready to go all out. After observing Guac's movements, Mu mimics a boxer's stance. Balling up his fist, he throws a punch with all his might. But Guac quickly dodges the blow, though the sheer force of the punch sends him skidding backward. The poor guy learns the hard way that this dude, Li Ho, really has something in him. The power behind that punch was downright unreal. Mu, on the other hand, is having the time of his life. Throwing a proper boxing punch for the first time felt like absolute bliss. At the moment of impact, Mu had intentionally tensed his arm muscles as hard as he could. Sure, his arm is screaming in pain now, but it was worth it. That punch felt amazing. He's never experienced this kind of force before, especially not from those weaklings who would break the moment he touched them. Still, if he wants to keep fighting, he knows he needs to take better care of his body. For now, he decides to use a temporary fix, in the form of himantes. Himantes are ancient Greek boxing straps made from 4-meter-long strips of tanned cowhide, wrapped tightly around the wrists for support. Meanwhile, Chickpuss is losing his mind watching his cousin, the so-called boxer, get pushed back. He angrily questions Guac, demanding to know why he's struggling so much against this nobody. Under the mounting pressure, Guac launches himself forward again, aiming to land another punch. But Mu quickly safeguards himself, effortlessly blocking the attack. Guac, on the other hand, is gritting his teeth in frustration. He's throwing everything he has, yet this guy is just standing there, stopping all his punches as if it's nothing. Mu, on the other hand, is analyzing every move. He notes how fast and precise Guac's punches are, but they're way too predictable. Just watching the way his muscles move, Mu can tell exactly where each punch is aimed. Finally, Mu takes a calculated step back, effortlessly avoiding a direct hit. Guac gets frustrated after having his blow dodged, so he quickly throws another punch, but Mu dodges that one too. And then, my guy counters with a perfectly placed punch to Guac's hand, causing him agonizing pain. Mu finds it funny when he notices how Guac's pained reaction is quite similar to Chickpuss's expression. If he had any doubts before, they're gone now. These two are definitely cousins. With another decisive blow, Mu knocks Guac out cold, leaving Chickpuss standing there, frozen in fear under Mu's intense gaze. While Mu is eager to finish what they started, Chickpuss can only tremble with his courage completely drained. Seeing Chickpuss cowering in fear, Mu concludes he's lost the will to fight. He directly asks if this bastard plans to fight further, but before Chickpuss can muster a response, Mu delivers a devastating punch straight to his face. What follows is a relentless flurry of blows. Mu doesn't give Chickpuss even a second to concede defeat. Blow after blow lands, and by the end of it, Chickpuss is beaten to a pulp. To finish things off, Mu delivers one final bone-rattling punch, knocking Chickpuss out for good. Satisfied that his opponent has no fight left, Mu turns and walks away after claiming the ear of Guac, and leaves the two broken cousins behind. Later, Mu returns to his apartment, sitting there and reflecting on the recent events. He admits that fighting has been fun so far, but the fact that his body breaks so easily is holding him back a lot. He never, even in his wildest imagination, thought that his muscles would tear just from throwing a few simple blows. While this muscle-tearing process is crucial for growing stronger and continuing to fight, it constantly interrupts him. He eventually decides to head back to the god's sanctuary to retrieve something he had asked Yang to prepare, which is a recovery magic orb. However, when he tries to return to the sanctuary, he fails. No matter how hard he concentrates, the transition just doesn't happen, leaving him wondering what in the world is going on. To understand the situation, let's rewind a few days to the divine realm, the domain of Elmer, under the god Lucifer's charge. This was when Mu had forcefully tossed Li Ho into Lucifer's world. Before leaving, Mu had told Yang to try and procure a recovery magic orb if possible. These orbs, it turns out, are special magical items often found on planets rich in mana like Elmore. They're common on such worlds, casually used for healing and recovery. But Earth, being a planet with scarce mana, only has these orbs through divine blessings or the whims of the gods. As a result, they're exceedingly rare on Earth, and only a select few humans throughout history have ever possessed them. Those who did were revered as gods by the rest of humanity. Yang promises to prepare what his master requested before returning, but he curiously asks who will attend the regular meetings if Mu is going to leave. In response, Mu rummages through his pants and pulls out a piece of paper containing the speech the dragon is supposed to deliver. With that, his master leaves. Meanwhile, Lucifer has been keeping a close watch with his giant eye. In the present, there's only one thought on Lucifer's mind. Mu's body is currently empty. Since Mu didn't join the meeting, it means he's planning to stay away for longer. This is a golden opportunity Lucifer doesn't want to lose. In fact, it's a once-in-a-thousand-years opportunity. Without hesitation, Lucifer quickly uses one of his spells and summons purple rods, letting them crash down. But Young quickly dodges the attack, sternly questioning Lucifer about what he's trying to pull. With a firm tone, the dragon inquires if this is perhaps a declaration of war against the Earth God. Lucifer rises into the air, making it clear that he will expel the Earth God from the seat of divinity. It's a war, and he intends to win. With this declaration, Young doesn't try to hold back either. He quickly opens his maw, preparing a compressed breath fire attack, and shoots a beam of fire at Lucifer. But Lucifer casually flings the attack away like it's nothing. The attack literally spans 360 degrees of the entire planet and causes a massive explosion. The explosion is so enormous that even So has to activate her self-defense aura, casting it over all the other gods to protect them from the collateral damage. After that massive attack, Young decides to take things up a notch. He activates his polymorph release ability, and the guy grows to a massive size. Compared to him, Lucifer looks like a tiny mosquito. But as we all know, size doesn't matter. What truly matters is stamina, and it's no surprise that someone as big as Young eventually gets outmatched. So looks tired already, and since she doesn't want to be part of this mess, she starts to leave, but Lucifer quickly stops her. Before she leaves, he wants to know where she stands, whether she supports Mu or opposes him. But So doesn't want to choose sides, so she decides to remain neutral. Lucifer, however, doesn't care if she stays neutral as long as she stays out of the way. He turns to the others and tells them to step forward if anyone opposes this idea. If anyone wants to oppose him, he's more than ready to handle them himself. Young then speaks up, questioning Lucifer's audacity to think he can actually defeat Master Mu. Lucifer sneers in response, confident that Mu, with that weak earthling body, couldn't do jack shit. Young grows concerned when he realizes that Lucifer already knows this. Lucifer reminds the dragon that complacency in strength and neglecting vigilance will lead to Mu's downfall. But Young isn't about to let Lucifer have his way. He quickly retaliates with his giant tail, but Lucifer slices through it with his sword as easily as cutting through a cucumber. Severely injured, the poor dragon is left wounded, but Lucifer makes it clear that as long as Young is alive, he can still reach Earth. And once there, he'll make sure to destroy Mu while he's in his weakened state. Young laughs out loud at Lucifer's words, mocking the idea that this bastard stands a chance. The scene transitions to Guak, who has just come out of the nursery after being patched up. In the gym, he's getting an earful from his senior. His senior does not like the fact that this punk ended up badly injured and now wants to quit fighting, even though the competition is just around the corner. The poor guy can do nothing but apologize. But his apologies don't calm his senior down. The senior instructs him not to come back until his arm is healed and dismisses him, telling him to get out of his sight. After taking the harsh words, the poor guy begins to walk out. As he leaves, he runs into Kang Cheol at the exit. Kang, of course, is not thrilled to see his friend in such a beaten-up state, and questions him about the broken arm. Now that Guak thinks about it, Kang is the best boxer in their gym, so he wonders if he might be able to defeat the person who did this. He bows his head in embarrassment before starting to explain. He claims that Chickpuss was getting bullied, so he stepped up to save him, but the opposing party ganged up on him and beat him up. What a coward. He literally twisted the entire story, and just to save his face, he is lying that he was ganged up on instead of admitting that he was soloed by Mu. Anyway, Guak claims that his left arm and ear are in this condition because of those punks. He even starts crying in order to sway Kang into fighting those bastards for him. But it seems Kang isn't as stupid or brain-dead as this blonde. Kang simply tells him that he should have been more careful before the competition, and, instead of fighting, he could have done an extra sparring session. Of course, Guak wasn't expecting this response. The fact that Kang isn't even considering helping him just makes him a little annoyed. Suddenly, Kang pauses, turns around with a totally pissed-off face, and asks this idiot who it was that beat him to a pulp. Now let's switch back to Mu. After trying to teleport himself several times, he once again fails to return. This is something very strange to say the least. There's only one scenario in which he wouldn't be able to return. The first scenario is when the original body is damaged. But Mu is sure his body is supposed to be protected by Young, and even if it wasn't Young who damaged the body, there aren't many things that could harm it. That's when a realization dawns on him. He entertains the idea that perhaps all the gods have joined forces to attack him. He feels annoyed to think that out of all the times, this is when they chose to challenge him. He desperately wants to fight them, but he's not sure how to do it while he's stuck here. After punching the poor pillow into oblivion, Mu tries once again to calm himself down. Even if all the gods attacked him at once, he's confident that Young wouldn't go down so easily. Still, Mu can't afford to just sit around and do nothing, so he decides to do what he can for now. The next day, we find him once again in the park, where he's back at his strength training. Right now, his main goal is to focus on strengthening muscles other than his arms. He can feel the strain in muscles he doesn't normally use, and though they scream in pain, the sensation is quite thrilling. The more he pushes himself, the more he enjoys it. His laughter echoes through the park as he revels in this moment of rapture. Onlookers nearby are left utterly bewildered, witnessing this strange dude enjoying himself in such an odd, almost unsettling way. After this rigorous training session, his legs finally give out, and he collapses. This is when he notices the class president, who looks less than pleased to see him here. She asks him, somewhat sharply, why the hell he's not attending school. Later, they both sit down, and he initiates the conversation by questioning her on why it's so important for him to be in school, especially since it's not really the place for body training. She asks him what his plan is then. He simply replies that he just wants to get stronger, and that's the only reason he's training. The president then asks another daunting question, why does he want to get stronger? He explains that it's so he can fight better, since right now, he's too weak to fight at all. His body is completely untrained, and he needs to build it up. His arms are already in bad shape, even though he's only been in a few fights. With strength training at the gym, he can build endurance, and if he gets stronger, he'll be able to fight longer, and possibly more than once, and eventually, more than twice. His body will also move better. Hearing this guy ramble on about training nonstop is starting to make the girl feel nauseous. He's been going on for hours, and she's not sure how she's supposed to get this maniac to come to school. Then, an idea clicks in her mind. She asks him why he's bothering to train if there's no one to fight. She reminds him that he's just working out alone, with no one around to challenge him. He needs to meet people, stir up some conflict, and only then will he find someone to fight. Before leaving, she instructs him to start coming to school regularly starting tomorrow, and to stop making her put up with more of his nonsense. As she walks away, he starts to see the logic behind her words. It's true that the guys he beat up probably won't show up again, so he'll need to find stronger opponents on his own. And looking for someone to fight while waiting for his body to recover doesn't sound like such a bad idea. While he's still deciding whether or not to start going to school tomorrow, a shady guy sneaks up behind him and calls out his name. He quickly picks up on the guy's tone and lets out a heavy sigh, feeling a sense of satisfaction. It seems like he's finally found his next target. As the punch comes flying at him, the maniac turns around with a big smile, ready to take it right to the face. Before we dive right into the action, here is a little bit of introduction about this new guy. Enter Cheol, a 15-year-old boxer who is slowly making a name for himself in the boxing. When he first starts, there comes a time when his sister, a rising star in ballet, attracts a stalker. The man becomes dangerously obsessed with her, keeping an eye on her every move. One day he crosses the line and tries to grab her instead of just following from afar. But before the stalker can do anything, he receives a hard punch from Kang Cheol. Unfortunately, it backfires. Because of Kang Cheol's earlier violent act, the stalker doesn't receive any punishment. Things only get worse. The stalker's obsession intensifies to the point that he attempts murder. This time, Kang Cheol once again protects his sister and stops the crime, but not without a cost. The stalker injures his sister's leg, ending her dream of becoming a ballerina. Enraged, Kang Cheol loses his faith in the law and starts believing only in himself. From that moment, he becomes a sort of vigilante, an avatar of justice who punishes those standing on the edge of crime during the darkness of night. He delivers judgment through his fists. Now, facing off against our dude, Kang Cheol notices his opponent immediately reacting to his light punch and guarded stance. It seems our boy realizes that Kang Cheol is just testing him. However, the good thing is that Cheol himself is now fighting Mu, something he didn't expect, since he thought it would take a while to find his next opponent. Kang Cheol seriously asks him what his purpose is in beating people, whether he truly has a reason or if he just intends to become a thug. Mu, eager for a real challenge, expresses his disinterest in small talk. His arrogance angers Cheol, who rushes toward him. Mu dodges each of Cheol's attacks with effortless precision, something the self-proclaimed judge notices as well. Determined to break through, Cheol decides to block Mu's right field of vision. With that move, he finally manages to land a punch, but Mu blocks it with his elbow. Cheol smirks and challenges him to keep blocking. Now Cheol punches from the other side. The motion continues as Mu keeps blocking his attacks with his elbows. Mu also notices that Cheol is sharp enough to target his ruptured spots, leaving bruises all over his arms. Finally, Cheol lands a solid hit to his side, knocking the air out of him. Then Cheol teases him, telling him not to use his arms to block anymore. Still, he remains relentless, determined to teach Mu a lesson despite his injuries. But Cheol doesn't know that our boy actually thrives on pain. Mu starts to smile even as his body trembles from the blows. Cheol is taken aback by this unsettling reaction. Mu understands that he can't beat his opponent, not with the strength he has right now, but he also doesn't want to waste the chance to fight someone this skilled. So he decides to reason with himself, not to enjoy the beating, but to stay calm. He remembers his fight with a demon, when he nearly lost himself to the thrill of battle. At that time, he chose not to smile but to observe his enemy calmly instead. Now, with renewed determination, he gets up. When Demon attacks, Mu dodges. The punch slams into the wall behind him. Leaving behind his barbaric impulses, Mu decides to use his mind in this fight. With each exchange, his reflexes and responses sharpen. Still, he can't completely hide his excitement. Trying to suppress his grin, he puts on a sulky expression instead, but his acting is so bad that it only infuriates Cheol further. Feeling mocked, Cheol charges at him again. Cheol can't believe that Mu is still fooling around and is about to crush that sulky face of his. Cornered, Mu throws dust toward Cheol's eyes, but Cheol blocks it with his elbow. This move, however, confirms his suspicion that this boy is definitely going to be a criminal someday. With the same sullen face, Mu urges Cheol to continue the fight. Cheol, burning with anger at that expression, attacks again, but Mu easily dodges by ducking to the side. Cheol quickly appears behind him and aims for his chin. Mu smiles, having predicted Cheol's fighting style. It's a bare-knuckle technique. This kind of fight existed in his own era too. After returning to Earth and facing 2 opponents so far, he concludes that the old-style knuckle fights focused more on defense because the rough ground limited movement. Now, with smooth floors and shoes to aid movement, fighters can fight more offensively. Observing Cheol's motions carefully, Mu begins to understand his attack patterns and realizes he can easily guide the flow of the fight his way. Most of the time, Mu keeps dodging Cheol's attacks. His plan is simple: move faster while the ground gives him leverage. Once he finds an opening, he plans to strike Cheol's vital points and claim victory. He readies his fist and swings, aiming for Cheol's face, but to his surprise, his arm doesn't respond. He had tried to use his elbow for the strike, but something goes wrong. Mu laughs and taunts Cheol for missing his target. Furious, Cheol retaliates with a rod, striking Mu's leg and making him wince in pain. Cheol tells him coldly that while this might be fun for him now, in the future he'll probably laugh while tormenting others. But today, he'll learn a lesson that will wipe that grin off his face. As Cheol raises the rod again, Mu realizes he has lost this fight, something that hasn't happened in the last 4,000 years of his life. He braces himself for Cheol's next strike, but before it lands, something hits Cheol. Assuming there must be a witness, Cheol runs away. The person calls out to Mu, addressing him as master. Mu turns around and realizes that it's none other than the tiny form of Yang. A little while ago, Lucifer is looking at Mu's real body, which he has securely trapped. This means Mu can no longer return to it. Worse, the space where Lucifer keeps Mu's body is a sealed dimension. His soul can't enter it no matter what. All Lucifer needs now is to open the Earth barrier to complete his plan. Turning to Yang, he offers him the throne of Earth in exchange for cooperation. But the loyal dragon remains silent, which irritates Lucifer, who demands an answer. Yang calmly asks whether the barrier can truly not be pierced by any attack. Lucifer confirms it with arrogance, saying no attack can break through it, and again orders him to accept the offer. Before he can finish, the dragon cuts him off, while saying that he's glad to hear that. Then Yang unleashes a massive explosion spell that engulfs the entire building. The next moment, a powerful blast shakes everything, and a miniature version of Yang flies out of the tower, thinking how he's used all of his remaining strength just for this one move. He rushes toward Earth to inform his master of everything. Behind him, an enraged Lucifer chases furiously, vowing to crush both the dragon and Mu. Before he can catch him, Yang dives into Earth's atmosphere and crashes right into Cheol, who is about to attack Mu again. The tiny dragon hurriedly tells his master everything and apologizes for the mess. Mu stays silent for a moment. Then, his expression twists into pure fury as he lets out a loud, furious curse. The next moment, Mu's anger turns into excitement, clearly because of the thought of an impending fight with Lucifer, who always pretends not to want to face him. He stands up with determination, ready to prepare his new body to battle the Demon King as soon as possible. But suddenly, pain shoots through his wrist from his latest fight, and he realizes he won't be able to use his arm for a while. Turning to his pet, he asks whether he brought the magic orb, and Yang confirms. The tiny dragon spits out a dragon bloodstone from his mouth, which is infused with a one-time healing spell. Regretfully, the dragon admits he should have brought more if he had known about the situation. Taking the stone in his hand, Mu assures him that it's more than enough. As the healing energy flows through him, his injuries begin to mend. But to his surprise, the effect feels strange. His muscles become more sensitive. He quickly deduces that the stone isn't just a healing artifact. It also contains a body enhancement spell. Yang smugly replies that he added some of his own magic to strengthen it. Mu notices that he didn't use much of the stone's power since his human body can't hold much mana. Now the stone can still be used one more time. He tosses it toward his tired pet, telling him to use it for himself, but his loyal companion firmly insists on saving it for Mu. Meanwhile, Class Rep is busy admiring her own pet, a small creature named Dooley. She wishes it could talk so they could play together. After spending a moment with it, she leaves it in its little abode and heads for school. At school, the scene shifts to a local bully, who's deep in thought. He's considering quitting his role as a troublemaker since it never really suited him. This time, he's determined to focus on his studies. Mu, however, has other plans. The moment he enters the classroom, he challenges the bully outright. Eugen sighs dryly, commenting that he's finally shown up. Mu replies that she was the one who convinced him to come to school to find a fighting partner. Nervously, she wishes him good luck, hoping he doesn't do anything reckless. Meanwhile, Cheol overhears some classmates talking about the second-year neutralizer. A girl explains that Lee Ho, a student who was often bullied, once fought back and beat his tormentor into a pulp, ripping off the guy's ear in the process. Since then, he's been known as the neutralizer. Cheol suddenly remembers his junior from the boxing club and grits his teeth, realizing he's been lied to. He regrets hitting the wrong person but consoles himself by thinking he only punched him once. Meanwhile, Mu grows disappointed when he finds no worthy opponents and decides to head to training instead. Suddenly, his eyes land on Cheol, and he immediately recognizes him as the opponent he fought yesterday. Cheol notices Mu's gaze and instantly bolts from the classroom, while Mu chases after him excitedly. Cheol panics, wondering how Mu could possibly recognize him since he had been well disguised during the fight. He also worries that Mu might report him to the police, so he desperately tries to lose him. Cheol turns into an alley, but when Mu looks inside, he finds no trace of him. Disappointed at losing his fight, he was craving, Mu sighs, already itching for the next challenge. Yong pokes his tiny face out from Mu's shirt collar and asks about Cheol, the human with the strong male scent. He descends to the ground and offers to track Cheol's scent so his master can follow. But before he can take off, his face collides right into someone's shoe. It's class reps. Seeing the tiny dragon clinging to her shoe, her eyes widen in shock, and then her face turns bright red in disbelief. Yong angrily demands that she move aside so he can go on with his task. But she stands frozen in a daze, utterly fascinated by the tiny talking creature. Without hesitation, she scoops him up in her hands, something Yong visibly dislikes. He even asks indignantly if she has any idea who he is. Frustrated, he realizes that he can't use magic right now, which would have easily gotten him out of this situation. On the other hand, Yujin is completely enchanted, staring at him like he's the most adorable talking lizard ever, definitely more impressive than her pet Dooley. Yong wriggles free from her grasp and hides behind Mu's leg, grumbling under his breath about how weak he's become. Class rep then asks if Yong is Mu's friend, to which Mu confirms with a calm nod, adding that the little dragon is quite obedient. Yujin, however, is clearly jealous that Mu has such an extraordinary pet. Noticing her expression, Mu smirks and teasingly offers Yong to her for a while, much to the little dragon's horror. Later, the poor dragon ends up being taken to Yujin's home. Seeing his sulky face, she assumes he's simply upset. She recalls how Mu offered to lend her Yong in exchange for helping him find Cheol, and she had immediately agreed. Before leaving, Mu instructs his pet to stay with Yujin for now and return on his own afterward. When Yong asks where he's going, Mu replies with barely contained excitement that he's heading to Sansujang. Now, in the present, Yong introduces himself as Mu's secretary and raises his tiny hand to cooperate with her. Seeing this, Yujin's heart skips a beat at his cuteness, and she immediately extends her finger to shake hands with him. She guesses that by master, he's referring to Lee Ho, and she promises to help him as the class president. Hearing that term for the first time, Yong looks confused. Yujin explains that it means she's not only the leader of the class but also the top student in their grade. Now he understands why Mu chose her because of her position. But he's also baffled to learn that Mu himself isn't the leader. When she reveals that Lee Ho isn't even the top student, Yong immediately protests. He insists that if she's the leader of the class, then Mu must be the leader of Earth. Then, with all the authority his tiny form can muster, he orders her to make sure Mu becomes the strongest. Yujin agrees, but on one condition. He must visit her home often. Feeling quite smug, Yong accepts, thinking this works perfectly in his favor. He's already planning to use Yujin to gather information about Earth. Deep down, he's determined to help his master reclaim his title as the strongest of all. Meanwhile, the said master is training in the park. He gets down from a pull-up bar, satisfied with the enhancement effect of the dragon bloodstone. He also notices that his torn muscles have fully healed, which will help him grow even stronger. Ready to test his strength, he positions himself, pulls back his arm, and punches the iron pole in front of him. The result is satisfying, as the impact rings out sharply. He glances behind him, half expecting to see Cheol, but feels disappointed when he doesn't. Still, he consoles himself, thinking he'll run into him eventually at school since they both attend the same one. As he walks away, the pole he struck now bears a deep dent from his punch. Passing by Yujin's house, his scent of sweat drifts through the air, reaching Yong, who is currently browsing online shopping sites with Yujin. Catching the familiar smell, Yong hops down from her shoulder and bids her goodbye. Yujin is clearly disappointed that his visit has ended so soon. Jumping out the window, Yong glides through the air and lands neatly on Mu's shoulder. With a smug grin, he boasts about how he won Yujin over, and that now she too will follow Mu. As they continue walking, a commotion breaks out in a nearby alley. Mu turns his head and Yong's nose twitches. He immediately catches the familiar scent of Cheol coming from one of the people fighting. Cheol is beating up a thief who stole a bike. The thief, clutching his bruised face, warns Cheol that he's making a huge mistake. He even threatens to send people after him, which only earns him another round of punches for talking nonsense. At that very moment, Mu shows up behind him. Cheol turns to find Mu standing behind him. Yongyang, however, is too busy sniffing the air, clearly distracted by the delicious smell coming from a nearby restaurant. Mu's eyes, though, are locked on Cheol. Cheol immediately raises his hands in protest, insisting that Mu has misunderstood as he has no intention of fighting anymore. But Mu doesn't seem to care. Without a word, he charges forward. Left with no choice, Cheol takes a defensive stance. Just as Mu closes the distance, he suddenly stops. Cheol blinks in confusion, unsure why Mu hasn't attacked yet. For a split second, he wonders if Mu might have changed his mind. That's when the thief, seeing an opening, pulls out an iron rod from his bag and swings it hard. Cheol narrowly dodges, but the rod crashes against Mu's head instead. Mu pretends to be hurt, but in truth, he's only waiting for the right moment. The instant the thief lowers his guard, Mu kicks him in the stomach, snatches the rod, and slams it into the man's neck before smashing their heads together. The thief screams in pain, but Mu doesn't stop. He keeps hitting, punching, and striking, his face lighting up with joy, until suddenly, it doesn't. His excitement fades into dullness. The victory feels empty, lifeless. One-sided fights just don't thrill him anymore. So naturally, he decides to fight Cheol instead. But when he turns around, Cheol is already gone. While Mu was busy pummeling the thief, Cheol quietly slipped away, wondering in disbelief how this guy kept finding him. Meanwhile, poor Yongyang is still thinking about food, drooling at the thought of a proper meal, only to be smacked aside as Cheol runs past him in his escape. At home, Cheol's mind keeps rolling around Mu's tactics, the way that guy seems to actually enjoy fighting. At that moment, his sister, Kang Hyuna, arrives, proudly announcing that she has just won a case against a criminal. After the stalking incident, this former ballerina has become a prosecutor. She tells him to move aside, but he turns to her and asks if she would get hurt if he hit her. She retorts that her hit wouldn't even make him flinch. Then she walks past him, explaining that for dinner, he'll have ramen but without an egg. He quietly observes how unbroken her spirit is, even after everything she went through. In contrast, that same incident has left him full of anger. But this isn't one of those moments for reflection. Not when he starts boxing again, his mind slipping back to his early days. Meanwhile, Mu is heading to school while poor Yongyang keeps apologizing for yesterday's incident, claiming that hunger made him lose sight. The students around them notice Yongyang and start guessing he might be a Komodo dragon. Just then, Yujin spots him and runs over, clearly excited to see him again. Mu asks her about the mission of finding the guy. She says she has a vague idea about the person he's looking for. Based on his description of Cheol in disguise, she realizes he's talking about Iljime. Mu doesn't recognize the name, so Yujin explains that it's short for Iljin Matajek, meaning someone who beats up bullies. Then she teasingly asks if he's into that kind of bully stuff. Mu, clueless as ever, just shrugs, but firmly adds that he has no intention of letting that guy go next time. At that exact moment, Cheol is standing right behind him. They are passing by when they hear Cheol's voice behind them. He leans in and whispers in Mu's ear that he'll find him after school, so he should wait up. Yujin notices their exchange and curiously asks if they know each other. Instead of answering, Mu looks thrilled at the thought of meeting this Iljimai. During class, waiting becomes torture for him. He can barely hold himself back at the thought of fighting. When the class finally ends, he finds Yujin and offers a motion-sick Yongyang to her, saying he has some work to do. Giddy with excitement, she immediately takes the little dragon and leaves. Once everyone's gone, Mu tells Cheol that his waiting is over. Cheol steps out, satisfied that he's been quiet all this time. He pulls out a pair of leather gloves and puts them on. Mu eyes them curiously, wondering if they're himantes, the kind used in ancient Greek boxing. Cheol asks whether he likes fighting. Mu denies it, but admits in his mind that he enjoys the feeling of sensation when he hits and gets hit. The movement of muscles, the surge of energy. It makes him feel alive after so long. Cheol, watching his expression, easily catches that he's lying. Then Cheol tosses him an extra pair of gloves and tells him to wear them since he doesn't plan to beat up anyone unarmed or anyone who isn't a bully. Without wasting another second, Mu slips on the gloves and rushes toward him. Cheol notes his impatience but stays calm. He's here for the fight too. He wonders if he's becoming overly emotional again. Facing Mu, Cheol relaxes his stance, deciding to treat this like a real boxing match. The next moment, when he lunges forward, Cheol punches him square in the face, then lands another blow on the other side. The rhythm feels good. He relaxes his shoulders again, channels rotational force through his body, and transfers that energy to his fingertips before sending another hit to Mu's face. Finally, he feels like he's boxing instead of just fighting. Meanwhile, Mu realizes Cheol's punches are dangerous, enough to cause real damage if not for his physical reinforcement. But the thrill of battle excites him. He's finally getting the fight he wanted. Elsewhere, in the night study class, Lee Haejin is asleep at his desk. He wakes to find a sticky note reminding him regarding his constant napping. Grumbling, he checks his phone, grabs some chocolate, and steps outside, only to spot the classroom where Mu and Cheol are fighting. Inside, Mu kicks Cheol, who protests that kicking isn't allowed in boxing. Mu, clueless about the sport, leaps into the air and questions whether there's any rule saying fists are the only weapon in a fight. Then he kicks Cheol in the face, and again in the shoulder, relentless in his attacks. Cheol, however, forgets just how heavy his kicks can be. The next one is aimed at his leg, which he narrowly dodges. He can't afford to let his lower body collapse. Meanwhile, Mu tenses up, realizing that the effect of the bloodstone on Yongyang's physical reinforcement might have worn off. Cheol notices the sudden change in his expression and instantly realizes that Mu is out of strength. To lighten the tension, he suddenly bursts out laughing. Cheol laughs too, and their laughter echoes through the empty classroom. Outside, Heijin watches them through the glass window, disgusted that they're laughing in the middle of a fight. Inside, the match continues. Cheol rushes at Mu, but Mu, now drained from the physical exertion, decides to take a defensive approach. Cheol is merciless this time. He punches his knee, making him stagger, then lands another blow on his face. Yet he keeps smiling. He understands now that Li Ho's body isn't strong enough to endure against Cheol's solid muscles. A thought crosses his mind, to use the third form of the bloodstone. Still, he rises again, determination burning in his eyes, and throws another punch. Cheol blocks it easily, and remarks on how lively Mu is even after exhausting his strength. Then he mocks him for having such a light punch. At that moment, Cheol gets distracted by something, and Mu seizes the opportunity. Cheol feels dizzy and confused. Even though the punch wasn't particularly strong, he decides to stay focused from now on. The next moment, he slams his head into Cheol's. Mu looks satisfied to see his trick working perfectly in his favor. In reality, he's practicing gathering mana, something essential for using magic. Normally, during mana gathering, a user draws in and purifies the surrounding elements like dust and oxygen. But here on Earth, since mana doesn't naturally exist, he adapts the method by gathering air in one spot, and when he attacks, it bursts outward as he releases it. He didn't expect it to work so effectively. Now, looking at the knocked-out Cheol, he finds him far more interesting than expected. He's even tempted to bite him to leave a mark after such an entertaining fight, but before he can, his hand stops him. He has misunderstood the scene. Cheol, still dazed, admits his defeat but refuses to let Mu cross that line. Finally, fumbling for words, he tells him that they'll see each other again. Later, Yongyang leaves Yujin's home, carrying the things she packed for him. She's ready to give him even more if he wants, but he waves her off and goes on his way. While walking, he spots Cheol heading down the street. The memory of how Cheol hit him and ran still burns in his mind, and revenge starts to bubble up inside him. Meanwhile, poor Cheol's head is still buzzing from Mu's earlier attack. Suddenly, Yongyang launches himself at him, but in just 0.16 seconds, Cheol reacts and flings the small creature away. He blinks in confusion, wondering what kind of dog that even was, and continues on his way. In this knocked-out state, our boy finds his poor pet sprawled out. The next day, he decides to keep Yongyang hidden inside the bag Yujin packed for him. Inside, Yongyang brags about how Yujin is doing a great job as his subordinate. He also decides to stay hidden to avoid drawing attention. That's when Mu spots Cheol, who questions why he's wearing a school uniform even on Saturday. Mu, who doesn't even know what exactly is Saturday, letting the matter go, Cheol asks about his passion for fighting. He calmly answers that he only fights when necessary. Cheol clearly doesn't buy the lie but lets it slide, instead offering him a chance to tag along while promising plenty of fighting opportunities. Mu's expression instantly shifts to excitement at hearing that, and he comments on how impressive Cheol sounds. He eagerly asks Cheol to take him to a place where he can fight. He, however, clarifies that it won't happen right away, which makes Mu doubt whether he's really as good as he claims. Then he tells him that before anything else, he needs to learn from him first. At Friday morning at Wild Goose High School, inside the restroom, a group of boys controls the entire space, not letting anyone enter. One bulky boy, Yang Zhou, stands inside, demanding money from another boy who offers only 20,000 won. The small amount infuriates him. Yang Zhou vents his frustration at Cheol because of him he couldn't sell the bike for a good price. Enraged, Yang Zhou punches the wall and curses Iljimai, muttering that the money isn't even enough to cover the principal, let alone the interest. He then orders his subordinate to call everyone. Now on Saturday, Cheol explains the situation to our boy. Initially, he says he just used to beat people recklessly, but after meeting him, he realizes he can actually enjoy fighting. Mu suggests that instead of wasting time on random people, he should just fight with him. Cheol assures him that a rematch will happen soon. Then Mu points somewhere, telling him to look. At first, Cheol assumes it's cigarette smoke, but the fog is too thick for them to be smoking that much. He senses something shady is about to happen as he spots a suspicious figure standing behind the smoking boys. The shadowy figure is demanding money from someone when Cheol moves closer to the smoking boys. One of them demands that he hand over his wallet, which earns the guy a solid punch from Cheol. Another instantly recognizes him as Iljimai. When the smoke clears, Cheol sees that there are more thugs than he first thought. He signals to our boy, who puts on his own mask, ready to move. Cheol rushes forward while Mu stands still, waiting for someone to land the first hit so he can join the fight. The chance comes when a goon pinches his leg, realizing he's with Cheol. Seeing that, Mu immediately joins in and punches him even harder. Before long, the two of them are beating the thugs down efficiently. Watching them, our boy notes that even though these delinquents act tough, they're actually weak, with the muscle strength of average people. What he doesn't understand is that their respiratory systems are in terrible condition. Cheol then picks up a wallet, one that belongs to a girl, and turns toward her. She happens to be his classmate. Meanwhile, Mu receives a warning from Yongyang about a new threat. Apparently, one of the thugs has already reported Iljime's location to Yang Zhou. Without wasting any time, Yang Zhou arrives with his lackeys. Cheol burns with anger he's been holding back for a long time, especially after seeing his classmate involved. He's ready for a brutal fight, while Yang Zhou orders his men to attack. Our boy, on the other hand, is thrilled to see an all-out brawl breaking out. Everyone fights recklessly, and he's enjoying every moment, until he suddenly takes a hard punch from Yang Zhou that sends him crashing to the ground. Yang Zhou doesn't understand why there seem to be two Iljimeis. Meanwhile, Heijin waits for someone who still hasn't shown up or answered his calls. Then he spots Yang Zhou, who's clearly out to kill his enemies. Watching the chaos, Heijin feels disgusted by their street fighting. He can't understand how anyone could waste their time like this. The truth is, his hatred for fighting comes from his father, a former mixed martial arts champion known as the strongest man. But every victory drove his father deeper into madness. At home, he became violent, taking out his rage on his family. Heijin's mother eventually escaped, but Heijin stayed behind to protect his sibling, enduring the abuse. Over time, he studied his father's fighting techniques. When he grew older, he started fighting back. That's when his father, feeling threatened, vowed to kill him and his sibling. Before that could happen, Heijin killed his own father. Because of his circumstances, he served only a year in juvenile detention before returning to school. Afterward, he worked tirelessly to support himself and his sibling. His body became his greatest asset, and he vowed never to risk it in meaningless fights like Mu or Cheol. But then his eyes land on a girl, Li Daljun, who is none other than his sister. And at that moment, he loses control, because now his sister is in danger. Yang Zhou stands before the knocked-out Mu, realizing that our hero isn't the real Iljimai, and wondering where the real one could be. The next moment, he gets a hard kick on his shin from Heijin, which makes him fall to his knees. Before he can make sense of what's happening, Heijin grabs his head and slams it against the ground with brutal force. Meanwhile, Yongyang is desperately trying to wake Mu up. Heijin rushes forward, stepping over the poor dragon without a glance. Cheol notices his target being taken down by someone else and can't understand what's going on. Heijin keeps cursing, and Cheol, assuming he's just another thug, prepares to fight him. Then Daljun calls him out, which distracts Cheol for a moment. Taking advantage of that, Heijin lands a solid hit on him. In the next instant, he pushes him back, grabs Daljun's hand and pulls her away. Her wallet slips from her pocket again as they run. On their way, Yang Zhou stands in their path, demanding to know who Heijin really is, another Iljimai. Heijin doesn't bother to answer and raises his fist to punch him, but our boy moves faster, landing a powerful hit that knocks Yang Zhou down. Heijin wastes no time and uses the moment to escape with his sister. Mu laughs uncontrollably at the chaos, but Cheol warns him to keep his face covered. As they move forward, Yang Zhou catches sight of their shadows, his fury boiling over. Later, Cheol lectures our boy about the most notorious delinquents around, among whom Yang Zhou stands out prominently. His other partners are Kwak Dugan from Kuku High School and Kim Chung-gu from Whistle High School. Together, they're known as Godori. So far, they haven't caused major trouble, but lately, people have started reporting cases of robbery linked to them. He keeps wondering about the reason behind everything, but after yesterday's incident, he finally realizes that all of them are the same people who once beat him up during a mugging incident. Yang Zhou turns out to be their so-called leader and the mastermind behind their crimes. It seems like Cheol's lecture is completely useless, as our boy doesn't even understand simple terms like delinquent or mugging. Cheol gets furious at him for having a brain but no common sense. Hearing his anger, Yongyang also gets worked up and yells at our boy for daring to talk to his master like that. Cheol is taken aback when he hears a talking creature, which he initially assumes is a frog. Mu calmly explains that it's his companion. Cheol now starts to find Mu a very suspicious person in his own way. First, he didn't know basic words, and just yesterday, he didn't even know what Saturday was. And now he has a talking frog, much to Yongyang's irritation. Finally, Mu decides to reveal his identity to Cheol, declaring that he is a god. Cheol doesn't believe him for a second and instead concludes that he must be an alien. Ironically, our boy doesn't even know what an alien is. It's revealed that they're sitting in the class president's room, who looks completely annoyed by their presence. Later, Yongyang finally manages to charm Yujin into letting the boys stay there for their plan. Cheol explains things to Mu in simple terms. Yang Zhou is their target. Still, Cheol feels a wave of irritation when he thinks about Daljun. At that moment, Mu reflects on Yang Zhou. Just thinking about him gives Mu a strange sense of defeat, though he realizes that Yang Zhou's bulky body creates a gap in their power. The thought excites him. He wants to fight Yang Zhou, but he tells Cheol that to win against him, he'll need proper training. Cheol agrees, admitting that he runs out of stamina too quickly. He offers to bring Mu to his gym for training. Mu thinks about boxing, but it doesn't feel enough. He wants something rougher, though he doesn't quite know how to express it. Meanwhile, Yongyang scrolls through a video on his phone and shows it to Mu. In the clip, a man takes a direct hit to the solar plexus and gets knocked down instantly. The streamer challenges anyone to defeat their champion for a 1 million won prize on the spot. Cheol watches too, and notices the name of Kim Chung-gu, who is one of the members of the Godori group. With that, our dude sets his new goal. First, he'll defeat Yang Zhou, and then, the remaining members of the Godori group. Meanwhile, in the Divine Realm, Lucifer is livid as he attacks the domain of the Earth God to vent his frustration. Staring at the barrier that holds the Earth, untouched and unshaken by his assault, Lucifer grits his teeth in utter rage. He knows that Mu can easily break through this kind of barrier, and he can't understand why, despite being stronger, he himself cannot. The realization frustrates him beyond reason. His face shifts into that of Yang Zhou, who is furiously cursing Iljimai. He's standing in a public restroom, banging so loudly that a person inside wonders if he's just that desperate to use the toilet. Later, Yang Zhou complains to his minions about not getting either the money or Iljimai. One of them shows him Daljun's wallet. When he checks inside, he finds only a few coins. He frowns, muttering about how today's youth apparently don't carry cash anymore. Then he spots Daljun's ID card and picks it up. His expression twists into a smug grin. He's clearly planning to use it for something. Meanwhile, Mu follows Yongyang's directions, guided by the map Yujin made for them. As they walk, a boy jogs past with his dog. The moment the dog gets near Yongyang, it catches his scent, growls, and bites him. Enraged, Yongyang glares at his new enemy and swears to kill the dog as soon as he regains his magic. After a while, they reach their destination, where people are trying to participate in a challenge, but keep getting rejected by the streamer selecting the participants. When it's Mu's turn, the streamer comments on him wearing a school uniform on a weekend and asks about his school. Mu confidently answers that he's from Pigeon High School. When asked about his fighting experience, he doesn't understand at first. Once the streamer explains, he calculates and proudly declares that he has 3 million years of fighting experience, causing a person behind him to burst into laughter. The girl agrees to let him participate but asks for an entry fee of 50,000 won. It seems Yongyang has already stolen Yujin's wallet, and the streamer finds 46,000 won inside. She accepts it anyway and lets Mu join. As Mu steps forward, he notices a hooded figure whose physique reveals intense training. Remembering the Godori members from the stream, he concludes that this must be one of them. The Godori member announces that the challengers should come forward, as the contest is about to begin. First comes the introduction phase. This fighter has a 13-week winning streak. While the introductions are still going on, Mu steps up, ready to fight, but is stopped by a short girl who tells him this isn't how their fights are conducted. She then explains the tournament-style pattern of their competition. After a while, it's finally our boy's turn, to face the disciple of a famous Chinese martial arts master, the Chinese exchange student, Xiang Xingquan. The crowd starts buzzing with excitement, and people begin placing bets on the fighters. Meanwhile, Yongyang is completely confident in his master's victory. But then, he spots the same dog that bit him earlier. Fueled by vengeance, he jumps into the air, ready to get revenge. He lands near his master, who looks utterly confused by his sudden appearance in the arena. The dog, now off its leash, growls and gets ready to fight Yongyang again. The streamer, delighted by this unexpected turn, announces to the viewers that the match has now become a double battle, where even the participants' pets will fight alongside them. The crowd roars with laughter and excitement as the streamer reintroduces each contestant once again, hyping up the chaos to come. Everyone is confused at the sight of Yongyang, trying to guess what he actually is, a lizard with horns and wings. The streamer, thrilled by the chaos, announces the beginning of the match. The Chinese martial artist introduces his style, explaining the imitation fist, a technique where one mimics the movements of animals. He warns Mu that an unarmed human can never defeat an animal, so he should be cautious. With that, he rushes toward him, using the tiger fist to lure Mu into dropping his guard. Before he can land his strike, however, Mu hits him with a single powerful punch that knocks him down instantly. Mu calmly tells him that even if he imitates animal movements, he's still human, and there's nothing special about that. The martial artist winces in pain, realizing the power behind just one of Mu's blows. Determined not to lose, he decides to use his ultimate technique, one his master had forbidden because it's dangerous for humans. Apologizing silently to his master, he lowers his body into a strange stance, leaving Mu slightly puzzled. Meanwhile, Yongyang is huffing in exhaustion, struggling with hand-to-hand combat after relying on magic for so long. The dog leaps in front of him, moving so fast it looks like it's everywhere at once. The streamer, excited, names this move the Chihuahua Ninja technique. The poor dragon is completely lost, unable to tell which image of the dog is real. He guesses the middle one, wrongly, and gets bitten again, while the streamer comments that the dog seems to be getting the upper hand. Back with their masters, the Chinese martial artist drops to all fours, taking the stance of quadrupedal mode, another imitation technique, and charges toward Mu. The crowd bursts out laughing at his strange movement, but among them, his master watches silently, regretting that his disciple disobeyed him and used this in public. Mu studies his opponent's lowered stance carefully. The next moment, the martial artist slashes his face with a tiger-like claw. Mu touches his cheek, realizing that if it had been an actual tiger's claw, he'd be dead. His playful expression turns serious. The martial artist keeps switching between different animal styles, overwhelming Mu with unpredictable movements. For a moment, Mu feels tense, but soon, that tension turns into excitement. He glances at the dog fighting below and suddenly understands something. If his opponent fights like an animal, then he must also share an animal's weakness. He bends his knees, channels his strength, and unleashes a burst of muscle expansion. In an instant, he jumps high into the air, far above. The martial artist looks up, startled, and before he can react, Mu dives down and strikes him. His reasoning proves correct. The weakness of quadrupedal creatures is the sky. Mu then turns toward his pet match, glaring down at the terrified dog, who instantly collapses in defeat. The streamer excitedly announces Mu's victory, while the crowd erupts, some even searching online for where to adopt lizards like Yongyang. Yongyang, meanwhile, grumbles at Mu about his magic. After 5 matches, the winners advance to the finals. The 6th match begins, which will determine the second finalist. Mu steps up for his next fight. His opponent is none other than boxing diamond breed, Guak Cheol, whom Mu has already defeated once. Mu looks thrilled to see him again. Poor Guak Cheol, on the other hand, looks absolutely terrified. Guak tries to console himself that he can win, he just needs to make sure not to let his guard down like last time. With that thought, the match begins. Both of their fists collide, and our boy shouts in pain because Guak is wearing a cast, a souvenir from his last beating at Mu's hands. He doesn't know that the immense pain also makes Mu feel alive. There's a twisted excitement gleaming in his eyes. Guak realizes how dangerous Mu truly is, but decides to tread carefully. His first plan is to throw a few jabs to shake Mu's focus, then finish with a kick, assuming Mu won't expect jabs and kicks since they're not part of boxing training. Unbeknownst to him, Mu already notices the subtle movement of his knees. Just as Guak is about to launch the kick and has the audacity to taunt him about it, and before Guak can strike, Mu punches directly at his knee, mimicking the same technique he once saw Cheol use. The strike completely rattles Guak. Without giving him a moment to recover, Mu spins and lands a brutal punch to his face, sending him crashing to the ground. Mu even bends down, ready to bite his ear, which terrifies the audience. With that victory, he secures his spot in the final match against the undefeated champion. The crowd erupts in praise for Mu's relentless fighting style, while he himself is buzzing with excitement to begin his 3rd fight in a row. He raises his fists, ready for the next bout, but before he can make a move, the champion greets him with a swift crescent kick that knocks him back. Mu immediately understands this opponent is fast. She strikes him with relentless kicks, not giving him a moment to catch his breath, yet our boy dodges them effortlessly. Mu quickly understands that her attacks carry the weight of someone from a higher weight class, just as expected from a member of Godori. Her reach is impressively long too. With that realization, he deliberately makes his expression sulky, pretending to be hurt, which makes her pause for a second, wondering if he's actually in pain. Mu knows he can't get close to his opponent easily, but still, he rushes toward her. Once again, her sharp kick stops him in his tracks, followed by a quick jab. He tries to extend his range by adding a kick of his own, but she ducks effortlessly, reading his movement like a pro. In this exchange, our boy not only takes a few hits but also counters with spinning kicks of his own, refusing to back down. She is stunned to see his sudden back whip kick. As Mu steps back, he notices the height difference between them, realizing that her tall frame makes her body less suited for close combat. She jumps again, striking from mid-air with another high kick. Observing her movements, Mu quickly figures out that all her attacks target the upper range. Before her kick can land, he steps back and drops down onto all fours. Now he's in quadrupedal mode, just like the Chinese martial artist he fought earlier, to counter her high attacks. He's hoping this stance will help him find an opening. She launches another kick, but this time he easily dodges with his lowered stance. She isn't used to this kind of low-ground movement, and it makes her tense. Meanwhile, the audience grows wild with excitement, cheering for the unpredictable match. The Chinese martial artist is baffled to see Mu flawlessly using the quadrupedal mode he himself spent 5 years perfecting. Even his master is impressed by Mu's adaptability, though he reminds himself quietly that his bet is still on the champion. The champion tries again to land a decisive kick, but Mu moves around like a cockroach, dodging every strike. She suddenly senses movement behind her and attacks instinctively, only to realize there's nothing there. Mu is already in front of her. In the next moment, he channels his energy and unleashes Imitation Fist, Behemoth Fist. The story flashes back to our hero's original story. He is from Earth, but doesn't stay there for long. After becoming Earth's leader, he moves to a planet designed by Lucifer, though not by his own choice. This realm is brimming with mana, and the animals here have evolved into terrifying monsters because of it. Day by day, Mu grows stronger as he defeats these beasts one after another. Among all the monsters he faces, Behemoth stands out as the strongest of them all. That's why he uses the hieroglyphic fist, an imitation of Behemoth's fist, in his match. For this purpose, he rearranges his muscles to closely mimic the monster's power and strikes the champion's side. She is thrown back and winces in pain. Before she can recover, he readies his fist again to attack. But before he can land the blow, the streamer announces that the match is over since it went out of bounds. Everyone is baffled to see the champion defeated by our guy. They're equally confused by the abrupt end of the match. The streamer quickly ends the broadcast, then turns to him with a smile, promising to give him the prize money. However, in the back alley, she clarifies that she only said he needed to win to get the money, but the real deal is that he must defeat her to earn it. Before he can react, she launches a flying knee kick that knocks the air out of him. That's when he realizes she's Kim Chung-gu, a member of the Midori group. Mu had already guessed she might attack, but he doesn't dodge because he wants to fight again. Now he regrets that decision. The kick is so powerful he can barely move. Chung-gu walks out of the alley, urging her champion to hurry, muttering that she almost lost $1 million because of him. With that, both of them run away, leaving our boy bruised but still burning with determination. Meanwhile, our boy growls in pain and calls for his peer to bring a healing potion. At the same time, Hyung rushes off in a panic. He made a terrible mistake. He lost 5 million won from his mother's account on gambling sites and now fears the beatings that will follow. He sees no way out but to gamble again to win the money back. Instead, he goes to a shop that offers collateral loans to students if they offer to mortgage something valuable. He brings Yong. The receptionist has no idea what creature Yong is, and told by Hyung it is a tuatara, an unusual reptile from New Zealand, except this one is a mutant with wings and horns. Hyung lies, saying he can sell it for hundreds of millions. The receptionist, persuaded, advances him 1 million won. Hyung feels a little satisfied. The creature was worth far more, yet he plans to gamble the entire sum to try to double it. Meanwhile, a hooded figure arrives and uses Daljun's ID to take a loan. The receptionist insists the person remove his hood. He complies, having applied makeup to mimic the girl's appearance. He's approved for 500,000 won, but after fees and deductions he walks away with 450,000 won to be repaid in a week. After collecting the money, the hooded man meets his boss, who is Yang Zhou. The lackey confirms the job is done and complains that he sends him alone because the place is sketchy. Yang Zhou admits he couldn't come himself but plans to win the money back and repay soon. Back inside the collateral loan office, the hooded man toys with Daljun's student ID. His subordinate asks if they can really recover the debt. He only assures that they have another method to collect if someone can't repay. At school, chaos begins the moment Yujin learns that Yong is missing. Restless energy replaces her usual composure as she runs through the corridors, her voice echoing in panic. The class watches in quiet disbelief at their president's frenzy until a teacher's stern voice cuts through, forcing her back to her class. Her explanation about the missing creature earns little sympathy. Mu, seated calmly as ever, remarks that Yong never vanished within school grounds. The statement draws a sharp reprimand from Yujin, who scolds him for withholding such a detail. From his desk, he produces the map she once drew, his finger landing on a marked spot where the trail ended. Before anyone can stop her, Yujin snatches the map and rushes for the exit, only to be caught again by the same vigilant teacher. Elsewhere, Mu's thoughts drift toward his earlier defeat. The sting of loss lingers in his muscles, every ache a reminder of how far his strength must go. The unfinished match continues to gnaw at him, yet the discomfort stirs something dangerous, a renewed eagerness to fight again. A plan takes root: recover, train, and challenge the Midori once more. When the final bell rings, Yujin takes him by the arm, dragging him out of the classroom. Cheol appears along the way, curiosity flickering in his expression at her urgency. Daljun joins them soon after, searching for a lost wallet. Then the discussion soon turns toward Yong. Mu's description of the creature, scaled, winged, and small now, earns only disbelief before the others scatter to search. Watching them leave, he remains behind, quietly satisfied that their search grants him time to heal and prepare. Far from the school, Yang Zhou hides in a restroom, eyes fixed on his phone as he gambles with trembling hands. A streak of victory flashes across the screen, but the smile that follows dies as quickly as it forms, because he can't exchange the money. Days slip by. The search for Yong yields nothing but frustration. Yujin and Daljun, both drained, rest on a park bench, their conversation fading between apologies. Yujin speaks of exams and responsibility. Daljun brushes it off. Yet beneath the words lingers resentment toward Mu, who remains detached from the search entirely. Rising from the bench, Yujin leaves to buy a drink. Behind Daljun, a shadow approaches, a man carrying a student ID. When Yujin returns, only the empty bench remains. Daljun has vanished. A few days earlier, Mu observes the class teacher with a sharp, appraising gaze that makes the man visibly uneasy. His straightforward remark about the teacher's muscle tone only deepens the awkwardness. And the teacher, blushing under the unexpected scrutiny. Then our guy exclaims to train the same training of his teacher. Now, in the present, Daljun stands inside the office of the collateral loan company while demanding the return of her student ID. The clerk, uninterested and detached, insists that the ID was used to secure a loan under her name. Her protest, laced with disbelief, fills the space. At the counter, the so-called young master slams a hand against the table, his expression sharp with feigned authority. His accusation cuts through her confusion, claiming she already borrowed the money. The clerk backs his statement with a cold assurance that the ID will remain with them until repayment. Realizing there's no other way, Daljun asks for the exact amount owed. The figure, 500,000 won besides the interest, due within a week. She promises repayment within the deadline. He warns her to be punctual, reminding her that they already know her school and class. She promises again and leaves the office while asking him to keep her ID secure. When she leaves, he remarks dryly about how young people lack common sense, which immediately offends his young master. Even when he tries to clarify that the comment wasn't directed at him, the young master orders him to call his uncle. Later, as the worker locks the office and leaves the key hidden in a plant pot, Daljun quietly emerges from her hiding spot. She decides to retrieve her student ID herself since she has no intention of paying those scammers. Finding the key, she slips inside the office, unaware of the shadowy figure trailing behind. After rummaging through drawers and shelves, she finally spots her student ID. Just as she prepares to leave, something catches her attention, a faint shadow from the wardrobe. Opening it, she freezes at the sight of Yongyang inside. Before she can do leave, Yangzhou appears behind her, swiftly covering her mouth and motioning for silence. He recognizes that she's the one whose wallet he had stolen earlier. Yangzhou quickly reasons, saying she must have come to retrieve her student ID and claims he's here for the same reason. He advises her to leave quietly, promising he will do the same. Moments later, Daljun steps out of the office with Yongyang, now realizing he's the missing pet from the posters. Disgust fills her as she thinks about how vile those people are, stealing someone else's beloved pet, completely unaware that the CCTV cameras have recorded every bit of her break-in. Later, she finds Yujin, who had been worried about her sudden disappearance earlier, immediately asks where she had gone. Instead of answering, Daljun opens her bag and reveals Yongyang inside. Yujin's face lights up as she rushes to hug the little creature, but Yongyang suddenly spots his real master nearby and darts straight into Mu's shoulder. Mu, caught off guard and clearly on edge, flings him away without a second thought. He quickly covers up the moment, claiming his muscles are sore from overtraining. Yujin, however, looks displeased by how he treats Yongyang so coldly. Meanwhile, at the collector's office, the staff reviews the CCTV footage, which clearly shows both Yangzhou and Daljun sneaking into the office and stealing the cards, with Daljun later walking off with Yongyang. When the worker nervously reports this to his boss, the man's expression darkens. At first, he scolds the collector for carelessly leaving his keys where anyone could find them. Then, in a deceptively calm tone, he remarks that the loss isn't major if those students fail to repay the loan. But his expression hardens, fury flickering in his eyes at the sheer audacity of those kids. Later, during the school football match, one student performs an eagle shot to kick the ball toward the goal. But our boy stands right in front of him like a statue. When the ball slams into him, his expression twists into something wild, almost psychotic, as if he's ready to beat the poor player to a pulp. The students nearby watch in horror, whispering about the doomed player while their sports teacher rushes in to make sense of the chaos. Meanwhile, our boy seems to be thoroughly enjoying his PE training. At the same time, Yujin gives Yongyang her old phone so he can use the messenger app, since neither he nor his master has a phone to contact anyone. She tells him to use it if something like his previous kidnapping ever happens again. Yongyang, however, has no idea what Wi-Fi or a messenger even is. Nearby, Hyung, who has once again lost his money, grows nervous upon spotting Yongyang. The next moment, Yongyang launches himself at him, furious over the kidnapping incident. Hyung curses loudly as he throws the creature off himself. Meanwhile, the PE teacher tries to calm our boy down, explaining that he needs to stay peaceful during PE or he'll be kicked out of class. Right then, Hyung accidentally bumps into him, and as soon as Mu sees him, his face lights up with excitement, ready to brawl again in the name of PE time. Before he can attack, the teacher restrains him. When class ends, our boy eagerly tells Yujin how much fun PE is and insists he wants to have it every day. Yujin dryly comments that he doesn't even know what PE means. She then casually suggests that he leave Yongyang with her since he needs to go for training. Besides, she says, her pet misses her, and she needs to teach him how to use a smartphone. Meanwhile, Daljun stands nearby chatting with her classmates while Cheol complains about his aching neck. Heijin is about to go see the class president when Yangzhou, battered, spots Daljun. He angrily demands that she hand over her student ID. When she looks confused, he tells her about the CCTV footage that caught them, making her friends question. Desperately, he warns that if she doesn't return it, she'll end up beaten like him. He then snatches her bag, trying to grab the ID, which draws the attention of both Cheol and her brother. Both boys charge forward as Yang Zhou threatens to hit Daljun unless she gives him the card. Before he can act, they strike first. But their attacks are suddenly blocked by our boy, who grins and declares that he got here first. Yang Zhou freezes, startled by their sudden appearance. Realizing he's outnumbered 3-1, he grabs Daljun and bolts. Cheol and Heijin sprint after him, trying to save her, while our boy follows close behind, eager to join the fight. After a while, Yang Zhou reaches the same alley as before and throws Daljun roughly to the ground. He turns to face the three of them, realizing no one will see what happens here. Recognizing them as Iljimai, he takes his stance and challenges them to come at him. Our boy is ready to go first, but Heijin reminds him that he is the one who blocked their attack and asks whether he will take responsibility if something happens to his sister. Mu senses his anger and asks to let his emotion vent with a fight and offers him to fight with Yang Zhou first, then he will take it from there. At that moment, Yang Zhou grabs his shoulder hard. He excitedly turns to Yang Zhou and attacks him, but it misses. A leg sweep slams our guy on the ground. At that moment, Heijin rushes ahead and takes his sister's hand because he can find a situation in which he can avoid fighting. He will grab it. Yang Zhou notices both siblings going away. Meanwhile, Mu realizes that his training is fruitful as he does not feel pain in his back. Then he contracts the back muscles and expands them to rise from the ground and get ready to fight again. Kang offers his help, but he declines it. Yang Zhou again attacks him as he grabs his hand with one hand and collar with another. Then again, using shoulder throws, he slams him to the ground. Mu is again happy that he does not feel any impact on his back. Then noticing the poor Yong getting the impact, Yang Zhou is about to hit his head with his shoe, but Mu steps back before it hits him. Angrily, he is ready to take revenge for his pet from this bulky goon. He punches him relentlessly, which is blocked by Yang Zhou. He did not expect these kinds of punches out of a boy who is a weight class. When he exclaims that he is going to take revenge for Yong, poor Yang Zhou has no idea who Yong is as he uses a body charge at our guy. To sense the next attack, Mu senses his muscles and it feels like the big rock is coming towards him. He tries to block the attack but is still thrown back by the impact. Xiao again offers his help, which he again rejects as he hands him his pet. He understands that there is a weight difference between him and Yang Zhou as his body is like a rock. However, he is still burning with determination to break this rock with his fist, so he decides to attack him at his weak points. Then he flashes behind his opponent, striking hard at Yang Zhou's back and leg. When Yang Zhou turns, Mu moves just as fast to his front, landing sharp punches on both legs that make the bulky man curse under his breath. Desperate to distract him, Yang Zhou calls out to Cheol, accusing them of ganging up on him 2 against 1. When Mu glances back instinctively, Yang Zhou seizes the moment. He wraps his arm around Mu's neck in a rear naked choke and tightens his grip, choking him out. Cheol understands that it's dangerous as he sees Mu struggling and finally calls out for help. Cheol rushes toward them, ready to pull Yang Zhou off, but before he can reach, Mu manages to choke out a hoarse command, telling him not to help. Cheol freezes mid-step, uncertain. Then Mu's expression shifts into a grin, wild and confident even with the choke pressing against his throat. He repeats it that not to help him. Yang Zhou's powerful grip tightens around his skull, and Mu feels the pressure crushing his blood vessels. The flow of blood to his brain slows down, and if this continues for even a few more seconds, he can be unconscious. But just then, a smirk forms on his face as he activates his neck muscle strengthening technique. He immediately follows it with a sharp contraction of his neck muscles. His plan becomes clear in his mind that if he can create even a small space between his throat and Yang Zhou's arm, he will use his forearm muscles to their maximum strength and break free. In one sudden burst of power, he releases all that energy at once and rips himself free from Yang Zhou's hold. His opponent's arm trembles from the force and he stares at Mu in anger, mocking him. Our boy studies him carefully and realizes that Yang Zhou's defense has weakened. He knows that now is the time to end this with one powerful and precise strike in the center and tightens his fist. A few days earlier, the teacher tells him to watch carefully as he demonstrates on the gym machine. He explains that many consider posture as the most crucial part of exercise. Holding the weight at full extension, the trainer shows how proper control makes a difference. He mentions that his lower body feels stable and that his muscles work smoothly through the 10 repetitions, giving excellent results. When he finishes, the trainer turns to Mu, who holds the weight just like he did, and asks if he plans to keep training and points out that the weight must feel heavy on his neck. But he keeps it there, showing his best effort despite the strain. The trainer observes him closely and warns him not to push himself too much, but Mu simply replies that he feels all right. In reality, Mu had mastered the art of controlling every muscle fiber in his body. Each fiber responded exactly to his will, and he could shift muscle density from one body part to another, strengthening specific areas when needed. Breaking through stone no longer seemed impossible because his entire body worked as a single, powerful system. He rarely used this ability, but right now the situation called for it. In that old memory, The trainer could only watch in stunned silence as Mu continued lifting with ease. Returning to the present, Mu feels his muscle fibers moving from his left arm into his right, concentrating strength where it matters most. Chiol checks on him, and Mu recalls his friend's previous match and realizes he had been right all along. He charges forward, gathering all his power, and drives his fist directly into Yang Zhou's core. The strike lands on Yang Zhou and his body collapses to the ground. Mu stands over him and a dark smile forms on his face as he silently claims his victory. Meanwhile, Heijin and Daljin walk together on their way back. Heijin glances at her and asks about the man who has been following her lately. Daljun hesitates, but finally admits that she didn't want to trouble her brother with it. She explains that she lost her wallet some time ago, and the incident spiraled into a complicated mess involving her ID card and money. She tells him everything that happened. As Heijin listens, anger flashes across his face and he realizes that ignoring this won't solve anything. That man will keep chasing Daljun and using the money to control her. Without another thought, Heijin takes out his phone, calls the class president, and apologizes for not being able to join today's plans. At the collector office, the boss sits on a sofa and mentions a soccer match, but just then, the door bursts open. Heijin storms in and his face burns with rage. Before anyone can react, his fist crashes into the bod's face. He follows it with another blow, then another, pounding him without hesitation. The collector freezes in shock, muttering that this reckless kid has lost his mind, and wonders if the young master is all right. The collector hurriedly grabs his phone and orders the guards to appear immediately. Within moments, 3 security guards rush in. Heijin looks at them with fury and has no idea that something he deeply despises flows through his own veins. It's his father's blood runs inside him, carrying a terrifying and uncontrollable strength. In an instant, he charges on the guards to attack. Heijin grabs one of the guards and throws him out of the doorway with incredible force. Within seconds, all 3 guards lie on the floor in a miserable state. Heijin looks at the boss, demanding to know why he keeps asking for repayment of money that was never took in the first place. The boss, bruised and shaken, struggles to speak and asks if Heijin even understands who he is dealing with. Heijin calmly tells him that it doesn't matter who he is, and if he keeps bothering people, the consequences will not be pleasant. He steps over one of the fallen guards and walks out of the room without looking back. The young master slams his fist against the floor, in frustration, and mutters to himself that he no longer knows how to deal with this situation. While Mu walks alongside Cheol, he admits that it has been a long time since he felt this much excitement during a fight. Cheol looks puzzled, and asks about the strange technique where Mu's arms seem to shrink, and then expand. He raises his arm to show him, and the veins swell across the surface. Cheol tries to copy the movement, but his hand only trembles weakly, unable to produce the same effect. Mu explains that he still hasn't learned to control his muscles properly, and instructs him to listen carefully to what his body is saying. Every muscle has its own unique reaction, and one must understand each of them individually. Only when the mind and muscles connect completely can a person gain true control. Cheol continues to practice the movement again and again while he leaves. Yongyong, sitting on Mu's head, questions why he is sharing so many of his secrets. Our boy replies that watching Cheol grow stronger makes him look forward to fighting him again someday. Yongyong agrees that fighting powerful opponents helps one grow faster. Our dude adds that he must also become too strong to defeat Lucifer with an evil smile spreading across his face. Yang mentions that Lucifer is still trapped behind the barrier, so they have plenty of time to prepare. Mu immediately corrects him that time is running short because Lucifer has the power to break the barrier and come to Earth soon. From now on, training becomes their only priority. Meanwhile, the young master then visits his uncle, Choi Sang-gil, and complains about how well their operation had been working before this mess. He explains that they start by lending small amounts of money, but the repayment system is designed to make it nearly impossible to clear the debt. The interest grows quickly, and when people struggle to pay, they are sent to a baccarat gambling site owned by the same organization. Everything had been running perfectly. Choi Sang-gil laughs and accuses his nephew of talking too much because he's scared of losing control of the business. He tells him that facing problems is part of the job and that he shouldn't be afraid. Instead, he should treat these setbacks as lessons. However, Choi admits he's disappointed because those guards were assigned to prevent such incidents. He promises to talk to them personally and advises him not to be too harsh on the younger members, putting his arm around his neck. At another location, the guards receive a severe beating from their boss. They hang their heads in shame, too afraid to speak. The boss yells at them for losing to a high school student and demands to know if they feel any sense of embarrassment. He realizes he would rather die than suffer such humiliation. Pointing a stick at one of them, he orders one of them to open his mouth. He places a pill inside and commands the others to take him away. He warns them that if the guard spits the pill out, he will be killed immediately. Inside an elevator, Choi Sang-gil discusses the business model with his nephew. He admits that the operation runs smoothly, but points out a problem that their main targets are students. Since young people don't have much money, the profits remain small. As they step out of the elevator, Choi gestures toward the scene ahead. A large crowd has gathered around a fighting arena. The nephew looks confused and asks what's going on. Choi explains that real money comes from large-scale gambling and that controlling the results of fights is the key to success. He directs his nephew's attention to one of the fighters entering the ring. It is the none other than Collector. His veins bulge grotesquely all over his body. The nephew, shocked by the change, remembers what his subordinate used to look like and wonders if this transformation was always hidden. The match begins, and when the opponent tries to attack, the enhanced Collector dodges easily. He launches a series of rapid strikes, moving like a wild animal, laughing as he feels a surge of overwhelming power. Choi shows him the same pill and explains its effect. With just one of these pills, he can control the results of every fight, deciding who wins and who loses whenever he wants. The nephew's eyes widen as he thinks about the possibility of using it to defeat his enemy. Meanwhile, Mu finishes his gym training. His body has changed completely. His muscles have become larger, stronger, and more defined. He smiles, noticing that this training method feels more thrilling than ever. The teacher watches him in disbelief, staring at the thick veins and solid muscle on his arms and legs. He admits that he has met many dedicated athletes before, but Mu is the first person he has ever seen change so quickly. The trainer asks if Mu is using any kind of performance-enhancing drugs. Mu starts to say yes, but before the trainer can warn him about the risks, he explains what he means. His thoughts drift to Lucifer's words about his weakness. He remembers being told that to face someone like Lucifer, he would need far more strength than he currently possesses. Mu's phone begins to ring, and Young quickly alerts him about the incoming call. When Mu answers, he hears Yujin's voice on the other end. She sounds irritated and demands to know where he has been, and complains that neither Yang has shown up for an entire week and insists on knowing their location. Our boy explains calmly that he needs to check if his training has produced any real results. Meanwhile, in between the street, two Godori girls sit together counting money. Chungu counts the earning amount as 8 participants joined, and donations came through the broadcast. Their conversation stops when a shadow falls over them. Both look up and find Mu standing in front of them. He admits that the situation feels awkward since he assumed they would have figured things out by now. Chungu admits that she has doubted his strength, and in an instant, he launches forward and drives his knee into Mu's chest. The strike lands perfectly, and Chungu lands lightly on the ground again. Yang is checking if our boy is injured, but he only smiles while Chungu stares in confusion. Mu reflects that he must be careful this time. He has fortified his vital areas by increasing his muscle density, using his own body as armor. In the past, his muscle mass wasn't enough to block such attacks, but now everything has changed and these blows no longer pose any danger. He then steps forward and unleashes a flurry of powerful punches at Chungu. He feels the advantage has shifted completely in his favor. His kick lands hard, sending shockwaves through Chungu's body. He then grabs Chungu by the leg and lifts her into the air. Chungu glares at him and asks if he really thinks he has won just because he's stronger now. She slams her elbow down on Mu's leg, forcing him to release his grip. Landing back on her feet, Chungu acknowledges Mu's improvement, but declares he will fight seriously this time. She rushes forward and attacks again, first with a horizontal elbow strike, then a rising one, and finally a spinning elbow. Just as she prepares to continue, she notices something strange that our dude doesn't even try to dodge. Instead, he grins and tells her that she is caught. His muscles tighten as he grabs Chungu's shirt and throws her over his shoulder, slamming him onto the ground. Mu lifts his foot to stomp on Chungu's head, but Chungu rolls away just in time. Mu activates the muscles in both his upper and lower body, propelling himself forward with full strength. His body slams into Chungu like with body ram, sending her flying backward. The other Godori rushes in and catches her before she hits the ground, quickly checking if she's okay. Chungu realizes that his strength now surpasses Yangzhou's level. His partner steps forward for help and charges at Mu, kicking with force. Our dude instantly recognizes the reach advantage this gives his opponent, so he moves in closer with incredible speed. His opponent's eyes widen as Mu is far faster than she remembers. Before he can strike, Chungu darts in from the side and smashes her elbow into Mu's face. The other one follows up with a kick, and together they attack in perfect rhythm. Our guy blocks with his arms and shoulders, absorbing hit after hit. He feels the weight of their combined strikes but stays firm. Inside, he knows that his training has worked, and his past self would never have withstood this. Still, he notices a problem that when he tries to approach the other, Chungu gets in the way. Their teamwork keeps him from attacking either one effectively. He decides that fighting both at once, up close, might be the best strategy. Yang also mocked them for their teamwork. Then, with a smile, he calls out to Yang, announcing that he's discovered a way to deal with them. Yang looks completely confused, not sure what his master means. Without warning, Mu reaches behind his head, grabs his pet by the tail, and swings him forward like a weapon, declaring that the fight is now 2 versus 2. It leaves both of them completely stunned. Our boy lifts him high above his head and charges forward, swinging him like a weapon to strike both opponents. Chungu rushes in and grabs Mu's arm to stop the attack, while his green-clad partner launches a sharp kick. The poor dragon slips out of his grip and flies through the air, but he quickly catches him again before he can hit the ground. Chungu realizes that fighting with a weapon creates its own weakness. The hand holding it becomes limited in movement, so closing the distance cancels that advantage. Acting on this thought, she steps in close and drives a powerful uppercut into Mu's jaw. Young slips free once more and spins through the air, crashing into the Ghidorri's face with a dragon kick. At the same time, Mu delivers a crushing headbutt to Chungu. He tightens the muscles in his neck beforehand, which lessens the impact on his brain. With equal force, the one who receives the hit always takes the worst damage. A large lump quickly swells on Chungu's forehead. The other rushes to check on Chungu, then sprints toward Mu in anger and swings a fierce kick at Mu's side, but he strengthens his side muscles and catches the leg mid-air. He then slams his elbow down on the trapped leg, making the girl cry out in pain. The champion reacts quickly and kicks Mu across the face with her free leg. Mu's eyes snap open, and he grabs that leg too. Now holding both legs, he pauses to think. Grappling usually suits him better than joint locks, but this situation seems perfect for trying one again. He twists both legs into a locking position, leaving his opponent helpless as the ancient Egyptian joint lock takes full effect. The champion screams as sharp pain shoots through her legs and he fears his legs might actually break. She shouts her surrender again and again, admitting complete defeat. Mu asks if he truly gives up and begins to release the lock. He mentions leaving his mark, but before he can finish, she breaks free and kicks him square in the face. She rolls away and quickly stands back up. Mu remarks on how much energy she still has and charges at her again. She then grabs a handful of money and throws it toward him, yelling for him to take it all. The bills scatter through the air, hiding both fighters behind the fluttering paper. Our dude then stands alone and Champion's cap lies on the ground nearby. He picks it up and remarks that he failed to leave his mark this time, but will succeed in their next fight, and places the cap on his head. Meanwhile, his partner lifts Chungu onto her shoulder and shakes him, trying to wake her up, but Chungu doesn't respond at all. Elsewhere, Yangzhou walks out of an emergency room wrapped in bandages. He mutters bitterly that nothing ever goes right for him, and calls Mu and his group bullies and swears to get revenge, and promises to teach them a lesson next time. He kicks a stone angrily, sending it rolling ahead of him. The stone stops near someone's feet. The person standing there wears a serious expression and questions Yangzhou's angry look. He spins around and demands to know his identity. He is Guok Dugyan from Kuku High School. Dugyan asks him where he keeps getting beaten up so badly, and he snaps back at his blunt tone, mocking him for acting tough even when he looks irritated. He asks if Dugyan expects sympathy from someone who's always being beaten. Dugyan taunts him that has some fight left in him and looks capable of taking even more punishment. Yangzhou questions his confidence to act so high and mighty when nearby groups, especially Chungu's, keep beating him down. His anger flares and he grabs Dugyan by the shirt. Without hesitation, Dugyan pulls out a pill and swallows it. In an instant, his aura turns fierce and threatening. He warns Yangzhou that if he keeps running his mouth, he will make sure every tooth in his mouth gets knocked out. Later, Yangzhou lies battered and bruised on the ground, the result of the brutal beating Dugyan delivered. The next day, the two Ghidorris walk and Chungu just finished getting his bandages wrapped. She questions why she threw away all their money instead of saving a portion. The other informs that she even lost her hat during the chaos. As they complain that the whole day turned into a complete waste, suddenly, Dugyan steps into their path. Chungu demands to know what he's doing there. Dugyan silently takes out another pill, swallows it. His aura darkens once more, as he states it's their bad luck to run into him. As soon as Dugyan swallows the pill, his heart begins to glow and starts radiating energy. He steps closer to his targets, and his usual quiet nature turns into violent aggression, and explains that capturing Yangzhou means only one opponent remains, and defeating them mean he will not need Ghidorri. Once that happens, he will rise as their new leader. Power surges through his body, and he charges at the girl with wild strength. Chungu is in shock as Dugyan reaches for her head, but she barely manages to dodge his attack. He doesn't stop and keeps swinging at her with non-stop strikes. Her partner rushes forward just in time, launching a powerful kick while Chungu also tries to counter with an elbow aimed at Dugyan's head. Both of them freeze for a moment in disbelief. One feels as if her kick has hit solid steel. Dugyan's body feels unnaturally hard and stronger than any human muscle should be. Dugyan catches her leg easily and throws a crushing punch straight into it, making a sound like bone cracking. She falls to the ground screaming in pain. Chungu curses loudly and attacks Dugyan with a furious series of punches, but he doesn't even flinch. He grabs her face and mocks him, saying her punches only tickle. Then he seizes her face, and she gasps in horror, unable to understand what he's done to make himself so powerful. Dugyan slams her head into the floor with incredible force, leaving cracks along the wall. Chungu pushes herself up again, but Dugyan only laughs and mocks them. When Chungu collapses on the floor, he turns away, pleased with himself, and mutters that he finally managed to say a perfect villain line. Later, the two injured fighters rush to the hospital for treatment. Meanwhile, Dugyan meets the hooded guy who praises his impressive performance. Dugyan, breathing heavily, demands to know what kind of substance he just took since the power feels insane and uncontrollable. The hooded man tells him to focus on finishing his mission. Capturing all the remaining Ghidorah members will fulfill their deal. Dugyeon claims confidently that he can crush anyone now and then asks why the hooded man doesn't take the pill himself if it's so powerful. The hooded figure recalls his uncle's warning that the pills have severe side effects. The stronger the power, the worse the damage. The user's personality turns violent, and repeated use can even make the body explode. Now in present, he quickly answers that he prefers herbal medicine instead. Dugyeon wonders what herbal medicine has to do with anything, but he gives no answer. Elsewhere, our boy searches for Ghidorah girls. Earlier, Yujin told him that Chungu also attends Whistle High School. Yang pops his head out of the bag, confirming it. Mu asks for directions, but Yang teases him for acting like an old man who still needs drawings to find places. Using the phone's navigation, Yang guides him to Whistle High. Mu, still wearing the cap, stops in front of the school just as the Ghidorah member comes out, walking on crutches. She notices the hat on his head is hers. She then leads our boy to the hospital, where Chungu lies in bed, his body wrapped in bandages. Mu asks what happened to her, and she explains that some maniac attacked them out of nowhere the previous day, leaving her in this state. She adds that it wasn't our dude who did it and informs them they already reported the incident to the police. The attacker hasn't been seen since, and Dugyeon has disappeared from school entirely. Just then, a sudden noise echoes behind them. They turn to see another patient in the next bed, Yang Jo, covered from head to toe in bandages, yelling Dugyeon's name in rage. He tries to sit up while cursing him non-stop. The doctor rushes in, panicking as his body starts shaking violently. He yells that the patient is going into shock and frantically searches for the missing painkiller. Yangjo admits to our boy that even though he doesn't like him, he has something important to tell him. He explains that Guak Dugyeon has changed completely after taking some pill. He was a pushover in the Ghidorah gang, but now he has become the strongest opponent. Mu listens carefully, realizing that his first impression of Dugyeon was completely wrong, but seeing Yangjo's beaten condition leaves him no choice. He decides that he must confront Dugyeon himself and asks about his location. Ghidorah champion replies that nobody knows and even the police are still looking for him. Our boy decides to track Dugyeon down on his own. Later, Mu carries several boxes hiding himself behind the teacher, while the teacher lectures about the importance of daily exercise and insists it's not for his own benefit. As he listens, Mu's mind drifts back to Dugyeon. He wonders how to find someone who seems to have disappeared completely. Meanwhile, in the distance, Dugyeon holds Haejin's photo while speaking on the phone. He tells the person on the other end that his target has already arrived. The voice angrily warns him not to expose his drug use by acting recklessly. Dugyeon hangs up impatiently, muttering about how long he still has to wait. From the classroom window, Dugyeon spots Haejin standing outside. He compares the face with the photo and confirms the match. Without hesitation, he swallows a pill and bursts through the door, shouting Haejin's name. Haejin turns toward the noise and sees Dugyeon, pointing at him and warning that today will be his last day alive. Dugyeon storms into the room with wild eyes, making every student freeze in terror. He grabs a student's chair. That student, still seated in it, picks it up and throws it at Haejin. Haejin dodges it, and the chair goes through the window, shattering the glass into pieces. Panic spreads as students whisper in fear, asking about his identity, shouting for the teacher. Haejin steps forward, demanding to know what Dugyeon wants. Dugyeon answers with a furious charge, shouting that resistance is useless. His punch hits Haejin so hard that he crashes into a bookshelf. A second hit follows immediately that he dodges, driving Dugyeon's punch deeper into the shelf. Haejin realizes that he can't just take his attacks like this, and he clenches his fists and declares that he'll fight back. With a burst of strength, he lands a hard punch on Dugyeon's chest, making him flinch in pain. Encouraged, Haejin follows up with another strike to the chest, forcing Dugyeon to stumble backward. Dugyeon smirks, calling the hit just a tickle. So Haejin throws another furious punch, but Dugyeon grabs his hand and crushes it until a sharp crack echoes through the room. Haejin screams in agony while students gasp and start shouting for help. Outside the classroom, more students gather, some calling teachers as the noise grows louder. Daljun and Cheol push their way through the crowd. When Daljun sees her brother being hurt, she throws her slippers straight at Dugyeon's back. The impact makes him turn, glaring at her. She yells at him to let go of her brother right now. Dugyeon refuses and raises his fist, stepping toward her. Before he can attack, Cheol rushes in from behind and punches Dugyeon, shouting that he has no right to cause trouble at someone else's school. The distraction gives Haejin just enough time to pull his injured hand free. He thanks Cheol quickly, then faces Dugyeon with burning anger. He warns him that touching his sister was a mistake he'll never forgive. With fury fueling his strength, he charges at Dugyeon. Downstairs, the teacher hears the chaos and looks up as students rush by, whispering about a fight involving the Ghidorah gang. The teacher demands an explanation, and one student blurts out that a serious fight has broken out in a third-year classroom. Cursing about troublesome kids, the teacher runs toward the noise. Nearby, Mu drops the boxes he was carrying when he hears it. His excitement sparks immediately, and he dashes off toward the classroom, eager to join in. At that moment, Yongyang senses something, so he quickly emerges from the bag and warns Mu that there's mana in the area. Heejin rushes forward with full force while Cheol attacks from another side. Doogyun notices Cheol's movement and turns his focus toward him, raising his fist to strike. Cheol quickly dodges the blow and thinks that this opponent relies only on strength, throwing simple punches that are easy to avoid. Doogyun roars in anger and spins his body to continue his assault on Cheol. At the same moment, Heijin kicks the back of Doogyun's shin with precision. The impact makes Doogyun fall to one knee as he grits his teeth in frustration. Heijin takes the chance to jab his finger into Doogyun's eye, reminding himself that even the strongest body still has weak points. Heijin and Cheol attack together, landing multiple punches on him. Despite the hits, he stands back up, cursing loudly. His gaze shifts to a student nearby. Doogyun rushes toward him and grabs him by the collar, demanding another pill. The student sighs in disbelief, asking why the situation keeps getting worse. Doogyun insists he needs just one more pill, declaring he was hired to catch someone. He shouts that the target caused trouble over unpaid debts, and promises that one more pill will be enough to capture Lee Heijin. Turns out the student was the same hooded boy and he trembles. Heijin immediately realizes that he is the one behind everything. Anger fills him as he glares at the man, who begins sweating nervously. He curses Doogyun for causing problems and shoves another pill into his mouth, ordering him to destroy Heijin completely. Doogyun accepts the command without hesitation. Heijin steps forward, warning them again about the consequences of crossing the line. Before he can finish, Doogyun's enhanced power sends him flying backward. The same shockwave throws Cheol straight through a nearby window. Doogyun's body begins to change grotesquely, turning into a massive beast. Daljun screams for her brother and Cheol, running toward them to help. Doogyun reaches out to grab her, but a strong hand stops him. The teacher has arrived. He remarks that Doogyun must have been working out lately, but brute strength does not excuse attacking his classmates. The teacher grips Doogyun's hand tightly and announces that it is time for a lesson. Doogyun trembles as he tries to overpower the teacher by force. The teacher quickly realizes how dangerously strong Doogyun has become and runs outside, calling for police assistance. Our boy appears at the scene right behind the teacher. Yongyang sits on his shoulder and points at the mana coming from him. Mu's eyes shift toward the students standing nearby who point at Yongyang and claim him as his property. But as he steps forward, his foot slips on a stray slipper, making him curse as he loses balance and slamming hand on Mu's face. Mu grabs his head and drives his elbow straight into his face, sending him crashing to the ground. He yells at Doogyun to attack and take down our boy. Doogyun agrees immediately and charges at Mu with a raised fist. Just as the punch is about to land, Doogyun's body suddenly changes back to his normal form. Shock spreads across his face as he realizes what happened. Yongyang has drained all his mana. Doogyun still tries to punch, but Mu counters with a single strong hit to his face, knocking him down. Mu continues beating him until he stops moving. Yongyang studies the mana he absorbed and remarks that it feels strangely familiar, carrying something special within it. After the fight, Mu stands over Doogyun's defeated body, feeling that something about this victory is off. The fight had no real substance, so he orders Yongyang to return the mana to Doogyun. He agrees but warns that this mana is not ordinary, so he asks about the difference. Yongyang explains that the mana is unnaturally pure, not found on Earth unless given by a god through a sacred item. Since the deity stopped giving mana long ago, its presence means another power is interfering. Mu's suspicion deepens, so he asks him if it belongs to him, and Yongyang laughs nervously. As he returns the mana to Doogyun, his monstrous form begins to reappear. The story moves back in time to nearly 1,000 years ago in the divine realm. Mu stands in the domain ruled by the god of the Cyclops. In front of him towers an Ultra Cyclops in its giant form. The creature grips its weapon with all four arms and lets out a thunderous roar, commanding him to stop. It swings the weapon down toward Mu, but he rolls across the ground to dodge. The weapon dissolves into a spiral pattern and disappears, and Mu rises from the floor completely unharmed. The Cyclops returns to its normal size as the giantification effect fades. It pleads with Mu to stop irritating it so often, and Mu responds that he will stop only when he gets proper entertainment and promises to return soon. Yongyang besides him understands the failure of the Cyclops to meet their master's expectations, but soon grows thoughtful. He starts thinking of a way to ease his master's constant boredom. After a moment, he pulls out a rock. Mu looks at the rock and asks its source, and Yongyang explains that he got it from Earth and begins a special preparation process. First, he uses crushing magic to grind the rock into fine powder. Then he mixes the powder with any available liquid. Finally, he pours magical energy into the mixture until it forms a sphere and then draws its sign on it. Once done, he proudly presents it to him. Yongyang describes the finished product as a dough infused with body enhancement magic. He explains that feeding a small portion to an opponent before battle will boost their strength, making fights more interesting for Mu. To demonstrate, he breaks off a small piece and explains that this amount is enough for one proper serving because the magic inside is highly concentrated. Mu ignores the warning and takes the entire remaining portion. Young tries to stop him, but Mu disappears before he can finish speaking. The next moment, he feels the effect surge through his body. The enhancement works perfectly. He faces the gigantic Cyclops again and charges with unstoppable force. His attacks grow faster and stronger until he smashes the Cyclops away completely, and it crashes to the ground with tremendous impact. As it falls, one of the magical pills slips from the Cyclops and drops toward Earth. A divine barrier should normally block such interference, allowing only gods or authorized beings to pass. However, the pill somehow slips through and enters Earth's atmosphere. Young watches helplessly as it disappears from sight. The story returns to the present, and our dude realizes that this situation has occurred before. Someone must have found one of those ancient enhancement pills. He finds this thought amusing and smiles. Dugyeon suddenly throws a punch at him, but Mu dodges by moving sideways. Mu clenches his fist tighter and swings again while closing in. Mu observes how durable this enhanced opponent has become. Dugyeon raises both arms, locks them together, and slams them down on Mu. The resulting explosion shakes the entire school, making students panic across the building. Mu escapes the blast just in time, but Dugyeon grabs him right after and lifts him high into the air. He shouts about his victory and throws Mu backward with all his strength. He smashes through a door, and his shirt tears apart from the impact. Young quickly flies to his side to check his condition, and Mu asks how long Dugyeon's enhanced state will last. Young examines the remaining mana and estimates that only 5 minutes remain before the effect fades completely. Mu repeats the time aloud, confirming it. Young confirms and explains that surviving for those 5 minutes might be one way to handle this fight. He also offers to drain Dugyeon's mana again if Mu wishes. Mu thinks about it carefully, and 5 minutes means the enhancement will soon end, and he will lose the chance to fight Dugyeon at full power again. A dark grin spreads across his face as he stands up. He decides to end this battle within those 5 minutes. Elsewhere, in another place, Choi examines a small fragment of stone. He studies it for a while and decides that this amount will be enough. Footsteps echo nearby as someone approaches. The stone in his hand turns out to be a small piece of the same magical pill that once fell from God's dimension. Mu then tears his shirt apart in frustration, and he knows that trying to match Dugyeon's strength directly will only destroy his own body. If he wants to win, he must surpass him in at least one area. His muscles tighten as his body prepares for what comes next. Since leaving his original world, his muscles have continued to develop and grow stronger. Over time, that excessive muscle mass began to slow his movements. He realized that raw strength alone wasn't enough, and he needed balance between power and mobility. Through training, he discovered a method to reduce muscle size while increasing density, a skill he named compression. During his years of practice, he stacked this ability over 100,000 times. Now, in this battle, he activates it at 1 stack. Compression lets him strengthen specific parts of his body instead of his entire form. As Dugyeon's fist rushes toward him, Young shouts a warning and Mu narrowly dodges, and Dugyeon's punch smashes through the door behind him. He increases compression to 2 stacks, feeling his muscles harden further. He grabs Mu's head with both hands and throws him across the room with tremendous force. Mu crashes into the wall as compression rises to 3 stack. Furious, Dugyeon charges forward again, and our dude mirrors his movement, sprinting straight toward him. Their fists collide in midair with explosive power, shattering every window nearby. Dugyeon stares in disbelief, unable to understand how someone can match his drug-enhanced strength, and he curses and attacks again. Our boy meets him head-on once more, and their clash releases a shockwave so strong that everyone nearby is knocked backward. Dugyeon's arms begin to tremble as confusion spreads across his face. Our boy, however, understands exactly what is happening. When equal forces collide, the one focused on a smaller surface area always wins. He corrects Dugyeon's assumption that they are equal, declaring his own dominance. He knows he doesn't have much time left, and Dugyeon's enhancement will only last for a few minutes more. He rushes forward with explosive speed, striking Dugyeon with a devastating blow. The impact sends Dugyeon flying through the wall and out the school window. He crashes onto the ground below, where the teacher and guard rush toward him in panic. The drug's effects fade, and Dugyeon's body returns to normal. People around him shout and call for emergency help instead of the police. From above, our boy looks down at the wreckage through the shattered wall. Daljun slowly approaches him, but before she can speak, the student appears behind him and grabs Young. He mocks our boy, declaring that Dugyeon was only the weakest among his options and promises to return with someone far stronger before tossing Young to the floor. Young rolls across the ground, grumbling about being treated roughly. He kneels on the ground, breathing heavily from exhaustion. Young hurries to his side in worry, but our dude suddenly smiles. He latches onto the student's words about Dugyeon being the weakest. His expression darkens, and a disturbing grin spreads across his face, and it makes Young nervous. Our boy demands to know more about these stronger opponents. Young starts sweating in fear as he watches his master's twisted excitement grow. Meanwhile, in another place, Choi grinds a glowing blue stone into fine powder. His nephew enters and begs for more pills. Choi inquires how he ran out so quickly when it took months to prepare the last batch. He admits that he used 2 pills in one fight and still lost. Choi stares at him in disbelief that losing after using 2 pills should be impossible. Before they can discuss further, a sudden noise makes them both turn. The door swings open, and Choi demands to know who entered and how they got past security. Moo stands in the doorway and every guard outside lies unconscious. He steps inside calmly, saying that he came because he received an invitation. Then, with a cold smile, he demands to meet the strongest opponent they have. A little while ago, when the bold boy had boasted about bringing stronger opponents, Moo demanded to know where they were. On his command, Yongyang became nervous and then opened his mouth to reveal a glowing red pill. It was a recovery sphere, an item that healed all injuries and boosted physical power. Without hesitation, our boy took it and prepared to leave. Nearby, Heijin and Cheol lay injured but tried to stop him. Cheol warned him about the danger ahead and offered to go along. Heijin insisted on joining too, hoping to prevent things from getting worse. Moo walked up to both of them and suddenly grabbed their legs, making them scream in shock and pain. Daljun stood confused, wondering what he was doing, but he refused any help, claiming this was his fight alone. He then started laughing uncontrollably before leaving everyone behind stunned by his strange behavior. He reached Choi Sang's building, where a security guard stopped him at the entrance. The guard mocked his appearance, comparing him to a beggar, and demanded to know what he wanted. He ignored the insult and kept walking, claiming that someone inside had made a promise with him. When the guard grabbed his shoulder and stopped him from taking Yongyang inside, he punched him straight in the face. The guard flew backward, crashing through the window. The rest of the guards, shocked by what they saw, rushed toward him. They shouted curses, but he treated them as nothing more than obstacles. Within moments, they all lay defeated on the ground. Our dude now steps inside and demands to see the strongest fighter in the building. The boy panics, pointing at him while shouting to his uncle that this is the maniac who keeps fighting even after taking 2 of their enhancement pills. Yongyang protests in annoyance at being insulted. Moo's aura grows heavier and more intimidating, forcing the hooded figure to step back in fear. Again, he asks where the strongest opponent is. Choi studies him carefully, realizing that anyone capable of defeating all their guards alone is far from ordinary. He decides to test this man properly. He agrees to show the strongest fighter but adds a condition. If he loses to any of them, he must serve under them. He accepts with a confident smile, telling them to proceed however they like. The boy quickly adds another condition, pointing toward Yongyang and demanding that he be part of the wager too. Yongyang becomes furious at being treated like property, but the boy agrees without hesitation, and Yongyang understands that he is simply too confident to care about the risk. Soon the battle arena opens and the first fighter appears. The boy nervously asks his uncle if they can really win this. He reassures him that 1 pill alone allows someone to fight for hours, while 2 make them nearly unstoppable. Their plan is to use 1 pill to wear him down, then another to finish him off. The first opponent has a pill, his eyes glowing red. He announces that although his boss has allowed killing, he won't go that far. He rushes toward Moo with full killing intent, but Moo activates his grip enhancement mid-attack, catches the fighter's arm, and squeezes until bones crack. The man screams and drops to his knees in agony. Choi's expression hardens as worry begins to show. Then comes the second fighter, also enhanced by a pill. He charges forward, but the protagonist strengthens his legs and launches his knee upward, striking with explosive force. The opponent stumbles back, and before he can recover, a brutal punch to the face sends him flying into the wall with a loud crash. Moo stands calmly, looks toward Choi, and reminds him of his promise, asking whether these are truly the strongest fighters he has spoken of. Choi watches the battle unfold, assuring him that only 1 fighter remains. The third opponent steps into the arena and swallows not 1 but 2 pills at once. His body changes instantly, muscles bulge unnaturally, his limbs swell like overfilled balloons, and veins pop across his skin. The boy is shocked looking at the monstrous figure and the extreme transformation. Moo wonders if this is the stronger opponent Choi promised earlier, and the fighter calls himself the strongest one there. To prove it, he kicks the man into the wall so hard that it crushes his body. Choi looks pleased by the brutal display, while Moo silently watches the destruction. When the giant finally strikes him, even a light hit sends him sliding several feet backward. He glances at his feet and analyzes the situation, noticing that the transformation made the fighter's legs far stronger than the rest of his body, and it's perfect for stomping and kicking with deadly force. So he removes his shoes, drops on all fours, and activates his Tiger Claw Fist, which is his quadrupedal combat style. The hulking fighter raises his leg to crush him, but Moo dodges with blinding speed. The fighter curses, calling him a cockroach, but before he can move again, Moo launches his behemoth fist straight at his face. The giant catches the attack mid-air, gripping his arm effortlessly and mocking his weak strikes. Suspended off the ground, Moo unleashes a flurry of blows, striking from every angle before driving his knee into the fighter's ribs. When he lands, blood trickles from the fighter's nose. The fighter wipes the blood and scoffs, calling the hits nothing more than bug bites. Moo realizes his attacks lack real impact. His mind races through options and aim for joints, vital points, or simply amplify power. Before he decides, the fighter lunges forward and drives his knee into his abdomen, sending him crashing into the wall. Blood runs down his face as the fighter laughs, boasting about how a proper knee strike feels. Mu steadies his breath, realizing that spreading his attacks won't work. He needs to focus everything on weak points. Moving fast, he lands a precise hit on the fighter's sternum, finally making him grunt in pain. The monster curses and counters with a storm of knee strikes that shake the arena. Mu wonders if his power isn't enough, then recalls that focusing the same force on a smaller area increases damage. Acting on instinct, he thrusts a single finger like a spear into the fighter's chest. The strike pierces deep, making the giant howl in agony. He follows with a barrage of finger strikes. Yongyang watches his master fight proudly. Choi curses under his breath, shocked that someone could overpower a fighter with 2 enhancement pills. He leaves his seat and charges toward the arena as his nephew calls for him. Inside, the monstrous fighter collapses, his chest covered in countless puncture wounds. He drops to his knees, then falls face first, motionless. Just as the fight seems over, Choi throws another pill inside that rolls across the floor and stops beside the man. Choi signals the fighter that if he takes the pill, he'll be offered money and forms a victory sign and utters a strange word, Tadabul. The fighter repeats it under his breath, and for a brief moment, it looks like he might refuse. But he can't control and swallows the pill desperately. The change begins instantly, and his muscles swell until they look ready to burst. His skin stretches over them like thick leather, and his entire body expands into something monstrous. Choi mutters under his breath, urging him to finish it now. The transformed fighter roars, shouting Tadabul again and again as he charges forward. Mu instantly understands that the situation has turned dangerous, and his earlier attacks won't work anymore. He focuses his energy, compresses his muscles, and extends his middle finger, thrusting it hard between the fighter's ribs. The hit lands, making the giant stumble for a second, but the effect vanishes almost immediately. He straightens up without a hint of damage. A realization hits him that his opponent's body isn't just strong, it's nearly unbreakable. He steps back quickly, trying to create distance while analyzing the situation, and his mind races for a strategy. Before he can think further, the fighter disappears from view and suddenly drops from above. The impact of his landing shatters the ground, sending chunks of debris flying in all directions. Our boy is thrown off balance by the shockwave. In midair, the fighter grabs his leg and swings him around before slamming him into the ground with brutal force. Blood bursts from his mouth upon impact. Yongyang flies toward him in panic, calling out to restore his mana right away. But even in pain, he manages a faint smile and refuses the offer. The fighter drags him across the ground, scraping his body against the concrete before tossing him high into the air. While airborne, he realizes that his attacks can't pierce through that hardened body no matter how strong they are. The fighter catches him again and smashes him down with overwhelming strength. Then, something clicks in his mind that if he can't break through the skin, maybe there's another way. Gathering his strength, he strikes upward, landing a heavy blow to the fighter's face. The impact loosens the massive grip around him, and he uses the opening to twist free, landing behind the opponent. Nearby, Choi stands frozen as he watches the chaos before him. As Mu looks at him, he mumbles that no one told him he wasn't allowed to step in. Our dude turns slightly toward him and, with a crazed grin, thanks him before bursting into laughter. Choi stares at him in disbelief. His thoughts are soon drowned by the crashing sounds of destruction. The fighter seizes our boy's leg again and hurls him through another wall. Choi's nephew screams and runs for his life. As Choi's gaze wanders across the wreckage, realization strikes hard. His building, his pride, the result of years of struggle since he was 13, lies in ruins. Everything he has built is destroyed in minutes. Mu steadies himself against the cracked wall, bruised but focused. His attacks have barely worked, except the one to the head, his only real target now. But getting close again won't be easy. The fighter won't repeat his mistake. Realizing that overthinking only slows him down, Mu exhales, loosens his stance, and lets instinct take over, fighting not with thought, but pure reflex. Mu pulls himself up and steadies himself. In an instant, the fighter disappears from where he's standing and materializes right in front of him. But Mu has already moved far back. The fighter freezes in shock, then realizes Mu has already kicked him and retreated to safety. Fury overtakes the fighter as he raises his fist, shouting mocking Mu that he can't scare him with such moves. He roars a challenge and charges straight at him. Their fists collide with tremendous force, creating an explosion that pushes both of them backward. The fighter's mind races, wondering that our boy still has energy left. Even so, that right arm can't possibly be usable anymore. But Mu drives his fingers straight into the fighter's eyes, pulls them out as blood pours down, then follows with another punch to the same spot. The fighter strikes back, his blow sending Mu flying far away until he crashes into the fighting arena below. He notices the pill's effects are ending. He launches himself upward, grips the arena ceiling, and drops down while shouting Tadabul, planning to finish this quickly. Mu watches his descent carefully and dodges at the perfect moment just before impact. The fighter slams directly into the floor. The moment he lands, Mu stomps down on him, making him cry out in pain. Then Mu unleashes countless strikes on the grounded fighter. Choi and Yongyang watch the entire scene in shock. As Mu keeps attacking, the fighter shrinks back to his normal size as the pill has completely worn off. Mu's foot is badly injured, but a smile spreads across his face. Suddenly he starts laughing uncontrollably. Just then, the arena ceiling breaks apart and collapses down on him. Yongyang screams and runs toward him, calling his name frantically. Choi watches everything unfold, regretting the damage, as he only wanted to make some profit, and now this happens. He tries to think positively, reasoning that at least the building is still intact. But looking at the shattered, broken structure, he questions himself whether it's really safe, and worries about recovering from the damage with just the arena's fight money. Panic sets him as he realizes he won't be able to even let matches happen there. Yongyang reaches his master and tries lifting the ceiling, but it's too heavy. He remembers the dough and assumes that if he takes it, he'll be strong enough to move it. He immediately rushes out of the arena, jumps onto Choi's face, and demands the pills while biting him. Choi shouts in confusion and mocks him. Just then behind them, Mu's hand appears and moves from beneath the ceiling. Yongyang's attention snaps toward his master. Mu's body trembles as he rises from beneath the collapsed ceiling, shoving the heavy debris aside before finally standing upright. Yongyang feels relief that his master is alive. Mu looks around in confusion, trying to understand what has just fallen on him. Yongyang quickly explains that something suddenly broke and came crashing down. He tilts his head upward, realizing that the building itself has struck him. He raises his hand and clenches it tightly. A deep echoing sound follows as his muscles expand to their fullest limit. Yongyang recognizes that sound as it only happens when he forces his body beyond its natural boundaries. He then slams his fist into the ground with tremendous strength. The impact sends cracks crawling across the floor like a spider's web, shaking the entire structure. Both Choi and Yongyang lose their balance as the tremors grow stronger. Cracks spread through the walls and pillars, making the whole building groan. Choi screams for him to stop before the place collapses, and Yongyang shouts warnings about the danger. Mu doesn't seem to care. When he hears the word collapse, he asks what it means, and decides that it's exactly what he wants. He strikes the ground again, even harder this time. The fractures deepen, reaching the foundation itself. Within moments, the entire building begins to sink and crumble. Outside, Choi's nephew runs as fast as he can, the sound of destruction echoing behind him. When he finally turns back, there is nothing left, just ruins and clouds of dust filling the air. From beneath the rubble, Yongyang appears first as he claws his way out. Nearby, Mu lies on the ground, battered and broken. His body is covered in cuts and bruises, yet his face carries a strange satisfaction. He laughs weakly, saying the experience has been enjoyable. Under the wreckage, Choi slowly realizes that his building is gone. His business, his fortune, everything he has built has been destroyed. Regret fills him as he thinks about his spoiled nephew. Then his eyes catch the enhancement dough nearby. Yongyang glances at his master because if he known the situation would spiral into such chaos, he would have brought along more recovery orbs. Lucifer's interference had completely disrupted their careful preparations. Yet our boy, calm despite his injuries, dismisses Yongyang's concern. He assures him that his body will eventually recover on its own. Fighting again soon might be impossible, but he trusts that Earth's medical facilities are advanced enough to aid his healing. Before Yongyang can respond, a thunderous explosion shakes the ground behind them. Smoke billows upward, and from within it, Choi emerges with his form altered after consuming the enhancement dough. Yongyang instantly understands what has happened. Without hesitation, he steps forward, determined to protect his master. He insists that he will handle the fight himself, but Mu refuses to retreat. He declares that the battle is his to finish. Yet before he can take another step, his body gives out and he collapses once more. Towering above them, Choi bellows about vengeance for his shattered building. His massive frame trembles with rage as he raises a gigantic fist and brings it crashing down. The force would have destroyed our dude completely if Yongyang hadn't pulled him aside just in time. The ground splits and crumbles where the blow lands, sending a shockwave rippling through the debris. Yongyang realizes his master cannot continue like this, and he pleads with him to stay down, but he refuses to surrender. Though his body is broken and his strength nearly gone, one leg, his left, still obeys him. It's enough for one final strike. He drags himself in front of Choi and focuses all remaining strength into reinforcing that leg. His target is clear, and when Choi charges forward, Mu releases all his power into one precise strike aimed directly at Choi's heart. The impact is immense. Choi coughs up the enhancement dough and collapses, his body shrinking back to normal. Yongyang picks up the dough, thrilled at the thought of extracting its mana to heal his master. But before he can act, a sudden gust of wind rips it out of his hand. As dust swirls around, he notices glowing particles drifting through the air. Then realization strikes him that this isn't ordinary wind, it's mana on Earth. Just then, the sky tears open with a deafening crack, and a monstrous creature descending toward them. A while ago, Lucifer releases an enormous surge of mana across the barrier. The ground cracks under the pressure, yet it remains completely unaffected. From a distance, Divine Archer watches him with curiosity, wondering if he has cleared out the entire area since no one else is in sight. Lucifer studies the ground beneath him, puzzled that not even a faint mark appears despite his immense power. An idea hits him that he should try something with the same power as it. Divine Archer continues to observe, confused by his sudden restless movements. Suddenly she is shocked as she watches him lifting an entire planet, Elmore, above himself. Panic grips her as she screams for him to stop. Lucifer is already set on his plan that the barrier should be as strong as what surrounds Elmore. Whether it is a barrier or something else, he intends to destroy it. Without hesitation, he hurls planet Elmore straight toward Earth. Instead of colliding and breaking apart, the two merge into one. The sight leaves both Lucifer and Divine Archer speechless. Lucifer tries to understand what has just happened. He expected to destroy the barrier, not to fuse two worlds together. From the point of contact, a surge of mana bursts out, spreading wildly between both planets. That same energy awakens the monster. The monster appears in the skies, its enormous form casting a shadow over everything below. It looks around, confused about where it is, and fury builds as it senses that someone has disturbed its domain. On the ground, panic spreads among the people. Screams echo as they question what kind of creature has appeared. Some shout for the police, while others are frozen in fear. One boy stands paralyzed, unable to move. The bull notices him and considers him as the one connected to this disturbance. To it, such a small being causing such chaos seems pathetic and dull. The boy's fear reaches its peak, but before the bull can act, something pulls it backward. The plane of nothingness begins dragging the creature away, forcing it to vanish and return to where it came from. Meanwhile, our dude asks Yong about the strange situation and why he can sense mana. Yong admits that he doesn't know as the mana suddenly started overflowing everywhere. Without wasting time, he begins using healing magic on his master. As he works, a figure descends from the sky and lands nearby. It's a knight, fully clad in armor, standing silently behind them. Yong shockingly looks at him, and the knight draws his sword and strikes the ground. In response, Yong shifts into his dragon form, ready for battle. Yong immediately transforms itself into its enormous dragon form. The knight then explains that his business is not with Yong but with the one behind him, Mu, but he refuses firmly that no one will touch his master until he's alive. The knight raises a hand and gathers energy. The sword starts to fly above Mu and flows into the knight's grasp. He declares that he will deal with Yong first. A violent explosion follows, and his laughter echoes through the chaos. Yong steadies himself and reflects that it feels like every strange creature in existence is coming after him, considering him an easy target. With a wave of his hand, he conjures glowing spheres of magic that encircle the knight. The knight looks confused, unsure of what is happening. Before he can react, the spheres detonate, causing a blast, and the knight falls back and his helmet flies away. Our boy approaches and studies the fallen knight. The man watching him grabs him in anger and demands to return something back. Turns out he's an adventurer from Elmore and the body isn't his own. The soul inside belongs to Lee Ho, who keeps shouting at our dude to give his body back.